Oh, you know what I love?
Sports.
Love sports.
Sports. When
it comes to Texas A&M.
Where are you getting this information?
Let me tell you.
Welcome to TexAgs.
TexAgs Live.
I feel like I should be listening to the theme song from the Jeffersons. You know, we're moving on up.
We will develop men, we will graduate players, and we will win championships on the field.
It's a blessing to be in this position, and we're just thankful to be here. We're thankful to have the opportunity to go out there and play in front of the 12 man.
He is a guy that has gotten better and better and better. He's just got that dog in him.
It's been special. The 12th man this past week was unbelievable.
And this is a real program. It's not fake. This is a real place. And if you want to be really good at football, this is a really good place to be.
You know, if I'm betting on anybody, it's the Aggies. Buchanan?
Nuño?
Got questions about A&M football?
Yeah.
There's a couple obvious questions, right?
Obvious questions about A&M football. Well,
I have a reason to my madness. We're going to have Josh Pate on the show a little bit later. Okay, 9 o'clock. He did a segment on his questions about SEC football teams. Mm-hmm. He had a couple when it came to A&M, and I think they're obvious to us, maybe not to the national public.
Okay.
What are some of the questions?
well, where's the pass rush going to come from?
Yep, that was his first question.
That's a big one for me. Is the secondary going to be able to
Great question.
play zone defense?
Great question.
After
can they tackle
all the thing? Well, yeah. So much of it's on defense, and then of course it's going to be Marcel. There's going to be questions on just how can he make that next step from being a good player to an excellent one.
So those are basically the two questions he had on his segment. Defense, particularly the pass defense and generating sacks. A&M was 90th against the pass and 69th in sacks per game last year, obviously underperforming what our expectations were. And especially when you got three guys that went in the first 2 days of the draft, that's not the kind of numbers we expected.
Yeah. We came into the year thinking it was going to be a dominant pass rush, and at times it was. Really good against Arkansas, really good against Missouri, was good against the LSU, and then just disappeared.
Yeah.
And of course, when it disappeared,
so did the wins.
So did the wins, except for New Mexico State, which you should be able to just line up.
That doesn't count for me. And then the other question that you brought up was about Marcel Reed. Mm-hmm. He says that Marcel definitely needs to elevate his game, but he doesn't have to do it all by himself because of the backfield that he has and also some of the playmakers at wide receiver.
Yeah, I think Marcel's in a really good position for a quarterback that's trying to take that next step.
Yeah. Because
you can rely on, or at least we believe you can rely on a strong running game with all the running backs and a offensive line that was proven coming back intact. And then, the additions at wide receiver that look to give A&M some extra speed.
I'm trying to think, what were our questions about A&M football a year ago today? Obviously,
offensive line.
Offensive line was a huge question. New coach, so we didn't know how it was going to play out, right? Like there was a lot, we expected a lot from Coach Elko, but we didn't know I'm trying to think what, because
I think there were some outside of Noah. There was some
linebacker questions. Maybe
there were some questions about receiver too. So many new guys. I think linebacker there was some uncertainty
because Edge left.
Because the edge left, and you said, well, they're not going to be as good at linebacker. But I don't think we expected them to be the sieve that they were in the running game because linebackers, quite frankly, consistently failed to fill gaps.
And the reason I bring all this up is because we can identify some questions today, but the season will illustrate some other questions that we didn't think about, such as last season. We did not think pass rush was going to be a question we asked about this team. We thought the offensive line would be better, but I don't think we thought it would be one of the strengths of the team.
Oh, there was no doubt it was going to be better. It couldn't have gotten a whole lot worse. And then, when you added Armaj Adams and you had Basantis back and other people coming back, you thought, okay, they should be better just based on being healthier and getting better guys in. But to go to number 2 in the SEC in rushing and number 4 in sacks allowed. I don't think we saw that coming.
Yep. Later on in the summer, we're going to do our 25 and 25. If I just said to you, who do you think is the best player on A&M's roster today? I don't like the way I said today.
I think I would say Le'Veon Moss.
Yep, that's what I would say too.
Yeah.
I think. I mean, even with the injury, I'd say he was their best player last year, and I would expect a fully healthy Le'Veon to be their best player again.
Yeah, I mean, I think he was.
And who would be 2 then? Because in my head, I'm thinking
Trey Zune comes to mind.
Chase Basantis.
Well, Zune was like the SEC lineman of the week a couple of times. Basantis is certainly good. Reed Adams is certainly good. Maybe I'd say Will Lee.
Will Lee, yeah.
Yeah, he was all SEC corner. I think I might say Will Lee.
Yeah.
Or to me, that question would be Will Lee or Trey Zune.
How important is it for Marcel to be one of the top 5 players on the roster?
Oh, I think it's always important. Unless you have a team that is just so dominant everywhere else. If in that case, your quarterback doesn't have to be one of the top 5, but he will appear to be that because he has so much help that it makes him look better than he is. I would say that I wonder, for instance, if up in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania, if they don't say Drew Aller is one of their top 5 players. Now, when I watch him play, my eyes
tell you something different.
Tells me he's not very good.
Right.
I mean, he's serviceable. That's what my eyes tell me every time I watch him play. But they are always talking about how good he is. And could it be because they have so much around him?
Last year, a question we didn't think we were going to have was about quarterback.
Yeah,
we thought Connor was going to be. I think we had him as our number 1 or top 3 player on the roster, if not number 1.
Yeah, I think he was number 1.
Yeah,
I think there was every reason to believe that he was going to have a big year. He was healthy. He had looked good in the past when he got a chance to play when he was healthy, and it just seemed like everything was lined up. It just seemed like everything was lined up for him to have a big year, and then he played poorly against Notre Dame. Maybe he was hurt for some of that, and he just never played close to the level that we thought he would.
What we need, and these questions are coming up because in 25 and 25 is not for a while, right? But you need people to overperform where we think they're going to be for this team to take the next step, not underperform.
Right.
Because you got underperformance from your quarterback last year.
You did.
From the guy you expected to be your quarterback.
And there could have been other reasons, but it doesn't matter what the reasons are.
Yeah. He may go to Houston and light it up.
I wouldn't be surprised.
And I hope he does great. That's not my point is for this team to be that level of team, you've got to overperform, even if it's high. You cannot underperform.
Right.
The defensive line underperformed
in November,
which to me is the totality of the season because you lost. You went from a SEC championship contender to losing all of November and losing in December.
I know this is a part of what you were thinking about, but I think a guy that's going to be really interesting to see where we're going to rank him is, I'm going to say Albert Regis, who I thought was their most consistent defensive lineman last year.
That's a good one.
I mean, he played well all the time.
Sure.
Some guys flashed and were great and then disappeared, but Albert Regis played well all the time. Now, maybe he never hit the highest marks, but he was never, failing either.
It's been suggested before that we should revisit our 24 and 24, 23 and 23. And I'm more like, but I also I'm ready to move on. I don't need to focus on what went wrong. I need to focus on what's going to go right this year.
Yeah, and hopefully a lot will go right. Hopefully that offensive line is going to be as good, even better than it was last year. Hopefully you're going to stay healthy in the backfield because you lost Reuben Owens and Le'Veon Moss. So hopefully you're going to have that strong running game. They both catch the ball well out of the backfield. Hopefully that injection of speed at receiver is going to make a difference in the offensive line, the defensive line, the guys you're counting on to get that pass rush. Cassius Howell, Rylan Kennedy, raise their level of performance and be that what they give you what you didn't get last year. And the linebackers take a step forward and improve. And all those things happen, and then hopefully you have a big year.
What is the quote from Mike Tyson? Everybody wants to fight until they get punched in the mouth, something like that, right?
Yeah, everybody has a plan.
Until they get punched in the mouth.
Yeah.
So, and that's the same thing for Aggie sports, all sports, but I'm focusing on Aggie sports because the reality is baseball had a bunch of injuries this year that derailed the start of the season. Mm-hmm. Football has had some injuries throughout the years that have derailed their season. And last year, Le'Veon Moss going down. But what's your plan after you get punched in the mouth? And A&M's got to get to a point where, and I'm saying across all programs, and this is everybody, right? Like that, yeah, you lose your guy, what now? Right? Like Texas lost a bunch of running backs in their preseason.
Yeah.
The running game ended up being one of the strengths of the team, if not the strength.
Well, they had such a good offensive line. Yeah.
Right. So what does A&M do if this happens? Well, you better have great depth, and you better got some playmakers that have gotten some not only experience in the prior seasons, but a lot of attention right now to develop.
Yeah, and I think now that I think about it more, one of the bigger questions is how much better is that receiving core going to be, or is it going to be better? Yeah, you lose Noah, but you add Mario Craver, you add Casey Concepcion. Are those guys going to solve an explosiveness problem?
I think they're going to miss Noah for sure, for sure. I think he was absent in some games, but they're going to miss him. I think what's going to be different about this wide receiver group is the skill set is different. It felt like our wide receivers the last few years were always covered. Mm-hmm. Okay, there was no separation, there was no openness. Maybe they didn't run good routes. I don't know why, but it felt like nobody ever got open. Now, hopefully, with a little bit more speed and athletic ability, and hopefully a more precise Marcel Reed, that is not a problem.
Yeah, I think the first thing, you start with getting faster at receiver. Let me ask you something. And it may be different than what I have in mind. What's the single catch that Noah Thomas made last year that really stands out in your mind? And I'll tell you the one for me.
Which one is for you?
It was LSU. That 50-yard.
Yes.
50-yard.
Yeah.
And he was well covered.
He was.
The ball was just thrown so perfectly. Yeah. And the coverage was busted, but they recovered.
They recovered,
but he still had two guys on him. And I bring that up to say there's another example of how it wasn't like he was wide open. Now, there was a time against Texas he was wide open and Marcel didn't see.
Yep.
So you got to get better on both ends, obviously.
You got to get better on both ends. All right. Let's see what questions you have for other SEC teams before we go around the room. Questions about Texas?
How are you going to repair that offensive line? That was one of the better offensive lines in the country. And you lose four of them, including a first-round draft choice. And quite frankly, the defensive line had some serious losses too. So how is good is Texas going to be in the line of scrimmage?
Yep. Is that the pass? No, this is some Noah Thomas plays, it looks like. Is that Noah? No, it's Marcel throwing. I'm sorry. I could not see. Yeah, what Josh points, Texas B-roll, thank you. This is what Josh said about Texas is about losing 12 players to the NFL. And obviously, anytime you have that much turnover, how do you replace that? I'm going to ask you some other schools. All right, LSU.
Well, with LSU, it goes back to the offensive line again first for me. Once again, I think all four of the offensive linemen that they lost got drafted. Mm-hmm. One in the first round, I think one in the third, and then a couple later. So you're going to have to replace four offensive linemen. And you got to get better on defense. They haven't been good on defense in 3 or 4 years.
It says here, offensive balance, LSU ranked 7th in passing, but 107th in rushing last year. So a little bit balance for their offense is his question. South Carolina, what's your question there?
I think South Carolina has had significant losses on their defense. Mm-hmm. A bunch of guys that were really good players, like the safety, Amenunura. They've, Kyle Kennard, who was the SEC Player of the Year, I think, on defense. Tonka Hemingway. There's another guy in the defensive line. So lost at least one linebacker. So I think as good as Lenora Sellers is and was, the strength of South Carolina last year was this defense. So that's the first thing that comes to mind there.
If we were doing GamecocksAgs.com, okay, we had a show in South Carolina, we would probably also be focusing on an area that they did not fix. One of the areas that they needed help on was wide receiver. They did not add any wide receivers, and that's a big talking point for South Carolina, along with fixing some of that defense that went away. The Florida Gators, I think that we'll probably both have the same question. How healthy is DJ Lagway? Because to me, that tells me a lot of their story.
Yeah, that does. Another team that had some serious losses on defense.
Auburn. The big question for Josh on them is turnovers. They did have a lot of turnovers. And can their secondary improve? Because they regressed last year, 118th in passes of 50-plus yards allowed.
Mm-hmm. A lot of losses on that defense, too. So maybe that's a good thing for them.
And then Missouri, will the new pieces fit on offense?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you lose the guys. They lost a first-round draft choice as an offensive tackle. Mm-hmm. Their quarterback is gone. Theo Weiss is gone. Luther Burden's gone. You going to be better? I don't see it that they're going to be better on offense or as good on offense without those four guys.
Hey, by the way, I don't know if you know, this is TexAgs Live.
It is.
Yeah, we're presented by David Gardner's Jewelry.
We are.
Rollo Insurance Studio.
Yes, it is.
Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations.
That is indeed the case.
That is the case, yeah. And this little area that we're sitting on is called the?
This is the Cool Zone, the Holistic Planning Cool Zone, to be particular.
Yeah, and they help you out with a lot of things.
Oh, they help you out with so many things that are important.
Yeah, like?
Yeah, well, like investments.
Yeah, that's true. That's important.
If you want to build wealth, you do it through investing wisely, and you get somebody to help you out to make those wise investments. And by doing that, you can not only have money now, but they can help you prepare to keep that money in the future, with your through taxes, so you can not have to pay more than you owe. And then also estate planning.
Right. Estate planning. That's right. And you can also invest in pro sports by going to investinprosports.com. They will help you out. If you want to be a part of the conversation this morning, what questions do you have for whatever SEC team? I'm going to actually ask Josh a little bit. I'm going to kind of go deeper into it when we get Josh on the show later. But what are your questions? Call us up on the Bucky's Catering Hotline, 979-693-1150. You can text that number as well. We go around the room. We say hi to the people. Nick Savage is behind the glass, and we say hello to Nick. Nick, good morning.
Howdy, good morning, y'all.
Hello.
Well, I'll just hit on last year's 24 players in 24 days, maybe the top 5, or if you want me to go a little bit farther, you can tell me.
Let's go 5.
Maybe, okay, let's do 5. So you can tell me if y'all think they need to be, or should have been up or down on the list. Number 1, y'all got it right already, Connor Wigman. I think we all know the answer to that one. Number 2 was Shamar Turner. How do we feel about that?
Injured, so didn't play up to that level.
Yep.
Number 3 was Nick Scorton.
I don't think he played to that level.
No.
I think he did. Definitely against Arkansas.
Yeah, there were moments.
Moments, but not consistently.
Number 4 was Torian York.
No, I don't think he played top 5.
That level.
I don't think he played top 5.
And then last but not least, number 5, Bryce Anderson.
No,
he didn't play. So your top 5 players, not one that we say reached the level. Is that right?
No, none of them.
Okay, I just want to hear. I want to go through 10. Sorry, I'm intrigued.
Yeah. We'll go number 6, Trey Zoon III.
Yeah, he did.
He did.
Number 7, Le'Veon Moss.
He did above.
Number 8, Shamar Stewart.
I think he was a top 10 player.
Okay. Because he did things other than rush the passer.
Yeah, I put him in top 10.
Number 9 was Reuben Owens, and if I remember correctly, that story came out like
a day or two
before he hurt himself.
So that's incomplete.
Yeah.
And then number 10, Noah Thomas.
Yeah,
top 10 player.
Noah Thomas was a top 10 player.
So hold on. Of the top 10 players that TexAgs and our subscribers all voted on, only 2 of the top 10 reached their level. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think we said 3.
3?
I think we said Noah, Shamar Stewart, and actually 4. And then we said Le'Veon Moss and Trey Zoon.
Okay. 4 of the 10.
4 of 6. Yeah, I think you got to have a better average than that. Yeah.
You'd be a Hall of Famer in baseball, but not in the 24 and 24 Hall of Fame.
Yeah, think of it as being a football quarterback. You need to complete 70%.
Maybe one day we will go through and see who did above and beyond. Thank you very much, Nick. Let's go around the room again, and we go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. From out the door to in the chair, Zachary Reese.
What's up, David? How are you?
I'm good, man.
I did get a haircut. You got a beard trim, too.
You look good, man.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, GQ? You
got good and groomed.
GQ?
Yeah.
Yeah. I could be on the cover model.
I don't know about all that.
Yeah.
Hey, tell us something good.
Yeah. So on the softball front, Texas A&M head coach Trisha Ford was named to the U.S. women's national team coaching pool for the 2025-2028 quad. And regarding the selection, Ford said, representing our country at this level is something every coach aspires to be. I'm especially proud to bring the spirit and work ethic of Texas A&M to the national stage, and I am looking forward to learning, growing, and contributing alongside some of the best minds in the game.
That's really great for her.
Yeah, she deserves it.
Yeah, she does. She's awesome. And she'll be on the show tomorrow, I believe on the phone because she'll be out and about, but we'll have her tomorrow on the show. What else, Zachary?
Yes, sir. And then also, so some stats I found. Since Caden Sorrell has returned to the Aggie baseball lineup in the Kentucky series, A&M baseball is 14-8 since then. And Caden Sorrell in this stretch has hit .346 with 16 walks, 10 home runs, and 28 RBIs through 22 games. And the Aggies have wins over Tennessee, South Carolina, Arkansas, and LSU.
If we did a 25 and 25 Aggie baseball players, he is somebody that, even though I was told entering the season he could be their best player, he has exceeded my expectations of how good he is.
Yeah, he's their best player. 28 RBIs in 22 games. That's pretty good, right?
I think that's better than one a game.
Yeah.
Last I checked.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Zach, good job, buddy. Thank you very much. All right, we'll hit a break. When we come back, performance of the week.
I just talked about him.
We might have just talked about him. Pardon?
The radio got a program, the weather alert. So I was telling you, trying to be secret about it.
Sorry.
Maybe make this live spot a little bit longer than normal because it's 1775 and it's so good.
What if I wanted to talk about another live spot? No way.
Well, you would have gotten me.
Yeah, I would have gotten
I'm
you.
pretty good at. I've worked with you for 4 years now, David. Feel
You
like
know.
I'm pretty good at. Huh?
You know what I'm going to talk about.
Exactly.
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to let this guy do it because he loves meat almost as much as he loves Irma. Almost. Not as much, but almost.
Yeah. You know what's great is when I have meat with Irma.
Oh, that's like a... Never mind.
In fact, last time I had dinner there, she said, hey, you want to meet at 1775? I said, yeah, let's meet for meat. And it was outstanding, of course, because we sat there, we got that sampler so we could have some of everything, which included that succulent brisket, and that
so
scrumptious jalapeno cheese sausage, those amazing pork ribs, had the turkey. Let me tell you something. If you're trying to watch your weight, and obviously I'm not, that turkey is outstanding. And then she liked pulled pork.
Yeah.
So that was pulled pork on there, and she got all that pulled pork that she wanted. We had some of the queso mac and cheese.
I've become a burnt ends guy.
Yeah, those are awesome.
I mean, I always liked them, but when I went there and I had them, I'm like, oh my gosh, I just want to lay down in it.
Yeah, and then we sat back and we were in the dining room, and there's always somebody in there or if you don't know them, you're going to know them by the time you leave. Yeah, it's just a fun place to have a lunch because they're always sold out before dinner.
By the way, their dedication earned them a spot in Texas Monthly's top 100 barbecue joints. You can call them up. 979-492-6241. That's 979-492-6241. Or go to 1775txbbq.com.
What's up, TexAgs? This commercial break is brought to you by my good friends over at Aggieland Chevrolet, the official automotive sponsor of TexAgs.com and me, Billy Lucci. Greg Gunn is the proud owner of Aggieland Chevrolet and invites you to visit the dealership to experience true Aggie hospitality. From their friendly staff to the experienced service team, Aggieland Chevrolet is TexAgs approved. Check out the dealership off of Highway 6 in Bryan or go to AggielandChevrolet.com and tell them Billy Lucci sent you by.
And we're back, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Go Hour, presented by The Warehouse at CC Creations. John Scheschuk is going to join us here in a few minutes. We've got to do the performance of the week. And, Obi, I'll let you have the first one.
Well, I don't know how you don't come up with Caden Sorrell.
The dramatics.
But there's so many guys on the baseball team that you could put in all the starting pitching.
That was one of my things.
Starting pitching.
So look, those numbers don't jump off the page what Caden Sorrell did, but not
the way the ball jumped off his bat.
Right. The moment that he provided in winning that series, and I did put the starting pitching for A&M because I think all three starters were fantastic.
And then you could look at Caden Wilson.
Yep.
Caden Sorrell, Caden Kent with a big home run. I thought there was some. I thought Rojo.
Yeah, Ben Rojo had a great weekend.
I thought he was excellent.
He was maybe their best player this weekend.
I mean, there's just a lot of guys you could have pointed to.
Yeah.
So, but in that moment when A&M has struggled so often with runners in scoring position, and you're down to 2 outs, I think it was, and he comes through with that 3-run home run to win the series.
I got another one for you.
Okay.
You familiar with Emily Kennedy?
I am.
Yeah.
And she like the
SEC Pitcher of the Week?
Yeah.
Went 2-0 against Tennessee. Complete game, 12 innings pitched, 16 Ks, finishing the series with a 1.17 ERA. The third time she has been the pitcher of the week this season.
Yeah, she's pretty reliable.
She's great. And she did it there, right? At Tennessee. Let's go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Zach, you got a couple of names for us?
Yes, sir. So, Aggie men's tennis, Theo Papamalamas secured the victory for the Aggies this weekend. He prevailed to clinch the victory. The Aggies are now advancing to the Sweet 16, and we are going to be playing North Carolina on May 9th at 4 p.m. next weekend. And also, Aggie men's tennis player, probably butcher this pronunciation.
You did great earlier.
Togan Tokac made quick work of Oscar Brostrom-Polson and Marco Miladinovic on court one. He won 6-1, and the Aggies are going to the Sweet 16. So that's a huge congrats to them.
This could become a new bit on the show. Just have him pronounce names because you say them great, but it just like
with the
I
accent.
appreciate it.
Yeah, sounds like he's from my neck of the woods.
Yeah, we should start a segment on it.
Yeah. We'll put it on the basic cable.
Yeah. Well, CW channel.
I love it. That's where you can watch us right now, right here on the CW.
Hey, CW.
Hey, CW. KBTX friends. Let's hit a break, shall we?
Yeah.
And when we come back, we'll talk to John Scheschuk.
Okay.
Tops drop, by the way, for the folks at Bryan Broadcasting. Hopefully they remember to play his jam. Ground shuttle time. They offer reliable shuttles from Bryan College Station to George Bush Intercontinental Airport. You can commute in comfort with luxury shuttles, reclining seats, and power outlets. You can enjoy the ride, catch up on work emails, and just read a book. You can just do whatever you want. Just relax, chill, read, sleep, whatever, and they'll get you there because we all know how crazy it can be when you go to Bush. The parking's a disaster. The construction's a disaster. You're late. Just let them handle it all for you. And they've got 9 shuttle times every weekday for every hour and a half and 5 shuttle times on the weekends every 2.5 hours. Excellent for business commuters, by the way. And they offer charter service as well. Check out the website to learn more about it, groundshuttle.com. That is groundshuttle.com. Go check it out. And we're back. It's TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio, Nuño and OB here. Let's go straight to the Buffy's Catering Hotline. John Scheschuk, the Aggie great, joining us to break down Aggie baseball. John, what's up, buddy?
Hey, good morning, gentlemen. How you guys doing?
Doing great, man. Let's kind of reflect on what happened this past weekend. Love the background, by the way. Let's reflect on the weekend and what's still feels like a team that just keeps fighting, keeps finding ways to make it interesting.
Yeah, for sure they do. I mean, that's a tough opponent that comes into Blue Bell Park there, and A&M handled their business and got it done with 2 out of 3. And there's a ton of storylines, which I know you guys have already discussed, but what a huge victory for them on that weekend. It keeps their postseason hopes alive and really brings them into a strong week of competition here as they have U of H tonight and then Missouri this weekend. So good things to come for the Aggies. That was an awesome win for them over LSU.
Yeah, good things to come. What do you expect to see from these guys moving forward?
You know, I really expect them, Olin, to get into the postseason and to wreak havoc and really to make it to Omaha. I think I said this on the air. I'm not sure if they're a championship club this year. They might be. I mean, they've gone up against the top teams in the nation the last 4 or 5 weeks and fared really well. But I expect them to make a run and to get to the College World Series. And I don't think that's hyperbole. I think they're good enough, Olin. I mean, we've talked about, or you guys have talked about at length, their pitching staff and the way Michael Early is really coming into his own. So I think they're going to make a good run here as they start this week and then move on to the SEC tournament and then into the postseason.
The thing I find interesting this past weekend was I don't think the offense was very good. And that's credit to pitching the last 2 weekends, by the way. But they found a way, and that finding a way is something that they did against Tennessee. They found a way against Arkansas, and they did more than just find a way. They blasted the doors down. So just what is it about this team that right now, since that Tennessee series, has found a different way to win a series?
Yeah, well, first off, it starts with Michael Early. We talked about this after that Tennessee series, David. He managed differently on that Saturday doubleheader. He came into his own, in my opinion. I was there on the call, and I saw it firsthand. And ever since that series, this team has taken on his personality. Now, when we go back to the Texas series, they just didn't execute. Michael Early wasn't out-coached, or there wasn't an issue above and beyond just a lack of execution. I mean, the bunt plays, which I know Bronny's covered in some of his segments, but just the little things that are required to be successful at that level, they didn't do. And now you get to this weekend series against LSU, and you had some big at-bats. I mean, shoot, go back and think about that 8th inning. You have Jace with a number to third base, and then you have a kind of softly hit line drive to right field that drops in, and next thing you know, you get a blast and a clutch hit. So those types of things, whether it's bunting execution or hitting with runners in scoring position with 2 outs, or just having that belief in the bullpen that they're going to close the door, and all of those things are on top of just a really confident manager who's learning and is doing things well late in the season here.
You know, John, you may not be qualified to answer this question because I don't know if you've ever been in a slump before. But, you know, look, for A&M to be as good and do the things that you think they're capable of doing, you know, at some point, Jace Lavallette's going to have to be a bigger contributor. You know, what's going through your mind when you're in a slump like that, and how do you get out of it?
Yeah, I've been there many times, Olin, and really it's just a confidence thing. I just talked about that little softly hit ball that he had to third base. Then he lets his speed do the work, and he gets on base there, which ultimately led A&M to a victory in that game. What an incredible at-bat that was. But that's really what it takes to get that confidence brewing. I think that's what you'll see with Jace. There's nothing mechanical that he has to do. Of course, they're always working on tweaking things. I mean, that's what they do every day, all day. But at the end of the day, his talent's going to take over at some point. And sometimes, to answer your question directly, you need a hit like he got in that 8th inning just to get some confidence going. And once that confidence gets going, then you're just back to playing ball and letting your talent take over. But you're exactly right. For the Aggies to do what they want to do, Jace must be a guy that performs at a high level. And he knows that, and I suspect it'll happen again as time moves on.
How about the resurgence of Ryan Prager the last couple of weeks, looking more like the Ryan Prager we expected to see?
Yeah, and, you know, I made a couple notes here just talking about consistency. Is there a more consistent guy from a mental perspective on that team than Ryan Prager? I don't think so. I mean, he has just been steadfast. And I saw him at Tennessee. I've watched every one of his starts. And I noticed that the velocity has ticked up. That's been discussed as well. Don't know where that went for a few weeks, but now he's sitting at 89 to 91, which is a good velocity for him. His mental makeup is super strong. Whether A&M hits for him or A&M doesn't hit for him, he stays consistent and really does well pounding the zone. And I also saw that, just their walks across the board as a collective pitching staff are tops in the SEC. Walks given up, that is. And so, Prager embodies that. He's going to compete every time. He's super consistent, and you got to feel really good about yourself with him on the mound on Friday night.
Yeah, the starting pitch has been really good all week. How do you feel about the bullpen now?
Mm-hmm. Well, the bullpen all of a sudden has done great. I mean, you saw that over the weekend. Just really performed very well in that series. And what was once a question mark is now really turned into something that you may call a strength. And I think, obviously Weston Moss is the leader of that. Y'all have talked about his illness that he had and just the guts that guy has. But Caden Wilson also has come on, and he's starting to really be himself again. So they've got a couple of arms down there that they can go to in pressure situations. And now they're building a case study where there's belief. There's belief in the team. There's belief in the fans. There's belief in the coaching staff. And again, what was once considered a weakness of this team all of a sudden is looking like a strength, which is great news for A&M.
For a couple of weeks, the topic has been, hey, nobody wants A&M to go to their regional, and I don't think there's a team that wants them to go to the super regional either. But why are they, considering how bad the start of the season went and what we thought they were, why are they such a bad matchup for all these other potential one seeds?
Well, experience, number one. Ryan Prager, he's a guy that's going to go out on that first game in a regional or a super regional and just give you a quality start. I mean, there's just no doubt about that. And that not only is included in the pitching staff, but when you go over to that offensive lineup, you can go through the list of guys who've been through those battles. Even Hayden Schott, who hasn't performed as well this year, he's still been through a lot. And, of course, Jace and, of course, Sorrell and the usual suspects have been in those big at-bats. So they've got experience from a pitching perspective. They've got experience from an offensive perspective. And even Michael Early, although he doesn't have experience directly as a manager in those situations, he's certainly been in them as an assistant coach. And we've seen some of the decisions that he's starting to make in crucial times. They're starting to work for Texas A&M. So all that's a really good recipe for success for the Aggies. And, yes, whoever they go or wherever they go in a regional, if they're a 2 or 3 seed, that's going to be a pain point for whoever the host is.
Were you ever on a team that, got through a point of the season where they just weren't playing well and you couldn't figure out why? And then what does it do for you when you do figure it out?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, I've been through that, not necessarily at Texas A&M the way that this year's team did, but I have been through that in my lifetime. And it's really hard, Olin, to pinpoint it. We can go back to the Tennessee series. To me, that's where the whole season hinged. But you also got a couple people healthy in a Caden Sorrell. You've got some, chops at the managerial level with Michael Early now gaining confidence. But it's really all about confidence. And this team still is not firing on all cylinders. And when it does, man, look out. They can compete with anybody. But I wouldn't change the way this season's run as a fan. I think it's been great to watch their consistency and their grit and their toughness on display. And we saw that even up to last weekend against LSU. So, they're playing good defense. They're executing well. And all those things are have the arrow pointing up for Texas A&M as they move closer to that postseason.
John, great stuff, brother. Thanks so much for your time.
You bet. Y'all have a good day. Appreciate it.
See you, man. John Scheschuk here on TexAgs Live. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back with the final segment of the Go Hour right now. So I went to Houston yesterday begrudgingly for soccer practice, and I was like, this is going to get canceled. But they hadn't canceled it yet. And, of course, as soon as I arrive at the fields at Burroughs Park, they canceled. It was one of those I was going slow on purpose. I'm going to get to my live spot here in a second. I was going slow on purpose because I was like, they're going to cancel it, right? They got to cancel it. And, of course, it didn't matter. As I turn around, one of the worst hailstorms I've ever experienced within a 3-minute stretch. So if your car got hit by that hailstorm, I don't know if it hit College Station. Did it hit College Station?
Yeah, it was hailing on my car last night.
Yeah, well, it got me on 249. So if it hits you guys and you have some damage, I got something for you. Don't trust out-of-town pop-up tents to do that work. Use Classic Collision and Restoration, who specialize in paintless dent repair for all that hail damage. That's twice over the last month that's been hitting us pretty hard. Those pop-up tents are going to be back, and they'll be gone. They'll be back because, hey, look at an opportunity, and they'll be gone. Don't do that. Keep your business local. They've been around for 25 years. It's Classic Collision and Restoration. They want to bring your car back to showroom form. They have all the restoration help you can imagine and the best quality detail service in town. Don't just get your car fixed, get it restored with Classic Collision and Restoration. They are Aggie owned and operated. Doug Leopold, class of 1993. OB?
Nuño?
It's TexAgs Live, by the way.
That is.
We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio Go Hour, presented by the Warehouse at CC Creations. CBS Sports ranked the 15 worst coaching hires of the past decade. No A&M is not involved. Okay. This is all college football. I'm just going to read you a couple of them, see what you think about it, all right?
Okay.
Number one on their list.
Number one, the worst college football.
In the last 10 years.
Okay.
Chad Morris at Arkansas.
Yeah, good. That's it.
Number two, surprising. I thought it was a hell of a hire when they did it. Les Miles.
They won a national championship with him.
Kansas?
Oh, Kansas.
Yes.
I thought you were talking about.
Sorry, no.
Yeah.
He went 3-18 at Kansas.
Yeah. Okay.
Let's see. Willie Taggart at Florida State.
That was pretty heinous.
I remember he was the big name.
Yeah, and you're like, okay.
Jeremy Pruitt, Tennessee. Number 5.
Worse? Okay, if you're factoring in all the drama that came with it, right? Okay. But
I'm going to skip around a couple of these. Mike Riley, number 7, Nebraska. I liked Mike Riley.
A good guy. Good guy.
Quality person.
Yeah.
Did not work.
Yeah, but nobody was working in Nebraska there
Nobody.
for a while, so that's kind of harsh.
Number 9. A guy that's on this show often. I better not say his name very loud because I want him to keep calling. Herm Edwards, Arizona State.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, he did things differently. Again, a lot of people failed at Arizona State.
This next one I thought would be higher on the list. And by the way, this is not to say that I didn't agree with the hire at the time, but it turned out to be a bad hire. Number 10, Brian Harsin.
Yeah, that was one of those that you're thinking, is the culture going to be right? Is he going to be able to handle the culture? And obviously wasn't. And you know, look, you get into Auburn. Auburn's the drama queens of college football. Just look at their history.
Yeah.
And if you're not winning immediately, and you know, remember they tried to some of their big money people were trying to trump up some charges against him and accuse him of something he didn't do just to get him out. So yeah, that might be a little bit. It was a bad fit. He's not a bad football coach, but that was definitely a bad fit.
I disagree with this
Arnett
one.
on there yet?
Not yet.
No.
I disagree with this one just because, or if we're talking about pure football, I don't know. Actually, I don't know. Mel Tucker at Michigan State.
Yeah, well, I think that was really bad, especially when you factor in
the off the field stuff.
Well, and he really hadn't had a lot of success at Colorado, and I think that it was where did he go for, and they gave him just a crazy amount of money for somebody that hadn't had much success.
You'll like this number 12. I don't know if you'll like it, but you'll laugh at it. Kevin Sumlin at Arizona.
Oh yeah, I was like, okay, didn't do your due diligence, and remember. Look, Arizona is a place where you're trying to get your fans to be interested in football. Yep. And the first thing he does there at the first spring is say, no media, you're not going to report on it. You're like, what?
Yeah. Number 13, at the time, agreed with the hire. Didn't work. Scott Frost, Nebraska.
Yeah, because he was called, man, this is the number 1 Grand Slam hire. And yeah, didn't work out. See, sometimes I wonder if it was a bad hire or
bad fit.
Or a bad fit. And you'd think it's a great fit because he played quarterback there.
So, like, for instance, Jimbo didn't work out. It was a great hire at the time.
It was a good hire until you gave him everything.
Yeah.
Because then he got lazy and wouldn't, he hardly put any effort into his coaching staff and his support staff. And that's where he went wrong.
That's where he went wrong, yeah. And also culture. Right, and that goes back to the coaching stuff you put together.
Right,
the culture for that, the timing of given the Lamborghini, if you will, with NIL and all the resources that A&M has. It was a bad fit at that time. After 2020, it became a bad fit.
Yeah. I mean, and he did, and in his mind, well, I don't have to hire coaches, or I don't have to hire an offense coordinator. The best defense coordinator I come up with is DJ Durkin. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
He's got a recruiting coordinator that won't recruit?
If we did one for the NFL, would your boy Mike McCarthy be on that list?
Of course. He'd be the I wanted to say something A, but absolutely.
Would Bill O'Brien be on that list? No, he won with the Texans.
Yeah.
Won. I mean, it's the AFC South, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
He won-ish.
As long as I just wouldn't put him in charge of trades or personnel.
Oh, God. DeAndre Hopkins for nothing. Thanks, Bill. OB, thank you, sir. When we come back on TexAgs Live, why is my voice doing this? We'll have Josh Pate. That's what we'll have. That's it. I'm just going to tell you. Josh Pate next. And we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Hour number 2 of the program. Time for our weekly conversation with Josh Pate, brought to you by Academy Sports and Outdoors, your new home for Jordan. Gear up today and take flight on the court, off the court, and above the court. And with that, we go to the Buppy's Catering Hotline. Josh Pate joining us here on the program. Josh, what up, buddy?
I'm looking out my window. I'm like an hour from you, by the way. The weather just sucks out here right now. I don't know how else to put it. The weather sucks in Texas right now.
It does suck. Did you get hit by that hailstorm yesterday?
I dodged it, but I was in the air, so we flew around it.
Okay.
And then we were told by our pilot, for those of you on the left side of the aircraft, there's a nice little show out there. Be glad you're not on the ground. That is exactly how he phrased it.
Well, I drove through it. It wasn't great. So I'm sorry that you're in Austin. I apologize about that. I want to follow up on one of the videos you did, I think it was Sunday, about your questions about SEC teams. And I'll start off with A&M, because I think some of these questions are the same questions we've had on the show. But the question about the defense, about getting to the quarterback, does it give you any pause, or maybe is it not as big of a deal considering last year with all that talent, they weren't able to get to the quarterback? And I feel like that was a problem for A&M last year, no doubt. But to me, the deeper problem was tackling for A&M. So I guess a weird way of asking the question, how big of a question is that for you, even though it's one of your questions?
Yeah, so it's layered. The way you put it is probably accurate. I think we saw this with a couple of other teams last year. There were even some teams that occasionally got to the quarterback. Like their disruption numbers were, top half of whatever league they were in. Tackling was not good. And so it doesn't matter if you can get the guy to 3rd and 13 if you can't tackle on 3rd and 13. So if you were to ask Mike Elko, hey, what do you want? You want high-level disruption, or do you just want to be able to tackle soundly? He's going to take the latter and then say, we'll manufacture ways to get to the quarterback when we need to. We'll dial up stuff when we need to. Yeah, I think with a number of teams, this is not an A&M thing. This is a college football thing. With the way that people practice now, and it had already been going that way, but now with the more thin nature of the second and third layer of rosters, the way people have to practice it's just less tackling to the ground than you used to do. And it is going to shock you, David, but the way you learn how to tackle is by tackling, as it turns out. And so it's not an excuse, because there's some really good tackling teams out there. So when you don't tackle well and they do, the limiting factor is you more so than the way you practice or the limitations or whatnot. But I'm saying that's a contributing factor to it.
Yeah, and then I want to follow up with something on Marcel, because I think the way you wrote it said it, I should say, was fantastic, because Marcel needs to be better this year. No doubt. I think he exceeded what my expectations would have been last year, based on, had you told me on September 1st, hey, Connor's going to get injured and he's also not going to be himself, Marcel's going to be the quarterback, I think he played above that. But for this team to reach the level that they need to reach to, he's got to raise his game. But it's not completely on his game, because he's got some pieces around him. He's got a great offensive line, a great backfield, and some playmakers at wide receiver.
Yeah, so the comparison I used was Cam Ward last year. Not to say Marcel needs to be Cam Ward, but what you don't want is you don't want him in a situation like Cam Ward was in last year, where Cam Ward walks in the door at Miami and everyone sort of said, all right, it's on you. And it was on him. And he played at a Heisman caliber level, but that's what it took. And when you watched Miami games last year, there were games where Cam Ward walks in the building knowing, I got to score 45 today for us to win, as it turns out. That should never be a situation Marcel Reed is in this year. That's not the way Elko's built the team. That's not the way the roster's constructed around him. You should be good enough at pass catcher. You absolutely should be able to run the ball whenever you need to. That should be everything working off of that. And then defensively, you should be a lot better to where 24 can win you some games. And you're playing a very complementary style. If you're at a lower level school, it's excusable that you may not have a roster built up and you get a star quarterback dropped in your lap. Okay, we're going to ride him. A&M should never have to ride Marcel Reed. Now, having said that, that's also not to say that he needs to be the invisible 11th man over here and just be serviceable. He does need to elevate his game. But if those two themes sort of coincide, that's how you're in the SEC championship picture in November.
Simple question. How important is consistency at quarterback? And then I'm just going to do a repeat history lesson, all right? 2021, you thought you had Haynes King as your starter. You lost him in game 2 of the season to Colorado. You had Zach Calzada, who played well at times and not so well the rest of it. The next year, you went through Max Johnson, Haynes King, and Connor Wigman. The year after that, Connor gets hurt. You get Max again. You get Jalen Henderson. You get Marcel Reed. This past season, 24, you thought you had Connor. He didn't look right, got hurt. Marcel comes in. Connor comes back, looks great against Missouri, doesn't look good again, and then Marcel's a quarterback. They have not had a consistent quarterback since Kellen Mond. And you can't win. I don't care if you're Alabama, you're Texas, or anybody. You cannot win with a multiple people at that position. So just let's talk about the consistency at that position if you get 10, 12 games from Marcel.
That's why it's always been an if with them, and rightfully so. If you're an A&M fan or if you hate A&M, you've got to objectively look at the quarterback position there. And it's if only because it's been so long since you said you want consistency. We could just have consistency in name. Just have the same guy there every week, at least for better or for worse. You know what to expect based on, what his track record is. But, there's some places out there that you feel like never deal with that. And then there's a place like A&M where it's been a constant. So you can talk all you want to about what it takes to turn the program around. Everyone focuses big picture. Just give me a quarterback that stays healthy all year. Some of it's through no fault of their own, but point remains, just give me a quarterback that stays healthy all year, because it goes back to what we were just talking about a second ago. It's another element of the complementary nature of a team when it's built the right way. You don't need a quarterback to be a star. It's nice when you have one, but you don't need it. But what you do need is you need a quarterback. Singular, not plural. You want a nice room for developmental purposes to practice the way you want to and give your team good looks. However, I'd love to see Marcel Reed in week 1 and then week 6 and then week 12. That'd be a nice thing to have.
Well, I want to do an extension of that question because last year, and it's been every year for A&M, but last year, you lose Le'Veon Moss, your team changes, right? Like it changes. It's not the same team. And when you look at championship caliber teams who have to navigate through injuries, like what is the consistent theme with those teams? Like Texas last year, it pains me to say it, but they lost their running back room before the season started, and their running backs were the strength of the team at the end of the year, partially because, or a big reason for the offensive line. How do teams overcome getting punched in the mouth as often as A&M has?
Competitive character. So it's funny that you mentioned this, because think about A&M week 1 last year. Going into week 1, we knew they were doing what? They were playing Notre Dame. So you remember the talking point the entire spring and summer, I participated in it, this is why I remember it so vividly, was A&M's going to have a nasty pass rush this year. We're playing them at Kyle Field. Notre Dame's weakness is offensive line. They have virtually no returning experience there. That's where we're going to feast. So Notre Dame wins the game. The offensive line is not this sieve and weakness that we thought it would be. Not only was it not, it slowly evolves into a strength of their team. Then they have injuries on the offensive line, and it still gets them to the national championship game, and only then do they lose. But it's never a weakness, David. It was never a weakness all year. And I remember thinking to myself, at some point last year, I just thought, it doesn't really matter. I kept thinking injury was going to derail them. I thought the unit was weak. Okay, it wasn't, but now they got injured. Now it's got to be weak, right? I found myself thinking it's just like a Lego box. At that point, it just felt like whoever they pull out, it'll just plug in and play. It's competitive character, like it's competitive depth and competitive character. And it's such that next man up goes from a cliche to really the way your team's built. And if you ever get there, that's the key to sustainability. That's the difference in being able to have one big year versus having big years stacked on top of each other is every guy prepares like he's a starter. Every guy on the team's capable of playing because he's talented enough. But every guy from the neck up also has what it takes because he's been immersed in this culture that convinces him. You've got to brainwash guys in some cases, but you've got to rewire the way they think to being, I don't care if I'm a 3 in week 1. I could be starting by week 4, and I'm going to be ready. And I don't know what the magic ingredients to achieve that are, but the best ones have that.
Well, then I want to go down that path a little bit further than with Notre Dame, because I know your video focused, your most recent show focused on SEC teams, but Notre Dame, like, what? There's some obvious questions. No Riley Leonard. You lose some studs on the defense. I feel like Freeman just keeps, churning and burning. He finds guys, just like you talked about on the offensive line. So what are your questions with Notre Dame?
So pretty notable in the personnel world was when Chad Bowden left them to go to USC. That was their general manager. There's a lot of talk out there in the, sort of player personnel recruiting portal world about what the secret sauce there at Notre Dame was. Is it Marcus Freeman and the program he's built? Was it what Chad was doing in talent acquisition? Now, I'm sitting over here on the sidelines thinking to myself, well, we'll see, because it'll play itself out on the field. I mean, he's at Southern Cal now. Marcus is still in South Bend. They get their own opportunities to, not that Marcus Freeman has anything to prove to anyone. I think Chad probably has more to prove than Marcus Freeman does. But I think to myself, if that existed, what we just talked about with that offensive line, if that existed there last year, I don't think that exists strictly in the O-line room. I would think that that's permeated throughout the entire program. If that's the case, and it's an if, but it's an informed if, then they are on the precipice of becoming that kind of program that you could just insert into the conversation blindly. You've long since done that with Georgia. Georgia's got a litany of question marks about that team this year, and they're one of two favorites to win the league in all the odds markets right now. That is because they have earned the benefit of the doubt in the entire market's eyes. Bama was that forever under Saban. Ohio State is that. Oregon will be that under Lanning. So I think with Notre Dame, like, I'm really excited to see them by mid-season, because, I mean, the new format has taught us it doesn't matter if you drop a game early. They did last year. They dropped a terrible game early, just not the one we thought they were going to drop. But I'm excited to see them mid-season, because around that point's when you start realizing which teams have the ceiling at their best if they happen to play that way like Ohio State did to win it all.
Of the teams you did in the SEC, and I guess Notre Dame will fall in the same category, how many of them were questions about quarterback? Because you look across the entire league, there's a lot of new guys starting. I mean, Arch has never really been the guy, right? We've seen him in these flashes, but he's never been the guy that you consistently had a game plan against. You look down the list, Ole Miss, I mean, they're all over the place.
Yeah. So the way I would answer that is most of the league has a question at quarterback in some shape, form, or fashion. But it's not just the ones who are starting new guys. Like, you can obviously say it about Texas. You could obviously say it about Ole Miss with Austin Simmons. But in the very next breath, what you owe it to the audience to tell them is Ole Miss is as high on Austin Simmons as I've heard any staff be as high on a new player. Take that for whatever you want to take it as. I was talking to an SEC defensive coordinator last week. One of the first names out of his mouth was Jackson Arnold, because we were talking about the league this upcoming year. He said, hey, I know everyone's forgotten about Jackson Arnold. I know people are writing off Auburn. That dude's going to be good there. We have not written him off. Like, we got him very much on our radar, which, again, is a take it for whatever you want to take it for kind of proposition. I think, though, David, about places like South Carolina where they return a quarterback. Lenore Sellers could be one of the stars in this league this year. They didn't really do anything in the portal at receiver. And they're, I think, very, very below average by league standards at receiver. So either he's going to make superstars out of some guys, or he's going to take it on his back himself, or you may see a little regression there because they don't have the firepower. Lagway, health. He didn't really practice in spring at Florida. So we'll see about that. Nussmeier, their run-to-pass splits were so lopsided last year. They couldn't run the ball. If they can't run the ball better this year, I don't know that Nussmeier is the guy that just takes over games throughout an entire season. I think he needs what we were talking about with Marcel, that complementary nature. I think the one that has the opportunity to just take the league by storm is Mateer at Oklahoma, because he comes in a good situation. That's the most underrated roster in the league, because their record was bad last year, but they got a top 10 to 12 caliber roster nationally. Just no one knows it, because Oklahoma was terrible offensively last year, but they addressed what they needed to address. So, I mean, we didn't even mention Bama, Georgia. They're both with new guys. it could be such a turn it upside down sort of inverted season in the league, but that's the way the country looks right now.
Well, another school then, Missouri, that A&M had no problem with last year at Kyle Field. That was a beatdown. That being said, Luther Burden is not there anymore. Theo Weiss is not there anymore. Like, they look completely different, and this is a program that Drink has really got. They've won 10 games, 2 out of the last 3 years. I mean, they've been moving in the right direction. Can they continue that momentum?
Yeah, so the tailback out of UL Monroe, I believe it was, I think he'll be a really good player for them, like 1,000-yard caliber back for them. The big question there that is going to kind of parallel Penn State season is Prbula's the guy at Penn State last year that comes in when Drew Aller goes down at halftime of the Wisconsin game. They're trailing on the road. Prbula comes in. They go on a 21-3 run in the second half to close that one out. He was the way the cards were sort of stacked. Last year was supposed to be Aller's big year. He goes off to the NFL. Just next up, Bo Prbula. That's Trace McSorley 2.0 in their eyes. Well, Aller's still there. Prbula transfers. And Eli Drinkwitz is just like, what just landed in my lap? Oh, a quarterback. Oh, one that's already had a little game experience. It's been developed in a pretty solid program. They're going to win with him. I think you and I both know Missouri's got a very workable schedule, again, by league standards. They're going to be right there in the hunt with a bunch of guys whose names 95% of the country is unfamiliar with, and it won't matter because it never matters with Eli Drinkwitz in Missouri.
I want to ask you, I didn't get to watch your clip on the most powerful coaches in college football, but I guess my question is, what is the criteria? What to you makes you powerful? There's a walk into the room, right? Like Nick Saban walks in the room, he looks powerful, and then he commands respect with the way he acts and his resume. What is power to you at that position?
Yeah, well, the exercise was me just asking, who do you think are the 5 most powerful coaches in college football? Then I gave my criteria. So to me, power is you got to be a winner. You have to have respect, both amongst your peers and amongst the overall college football ecosystem. People have to respect you at the very least. Even if they hate you, they have to respect you. Your words have to carry weight behind them. You have to be a pretty intelligent, big picture thinker. And then fourth, you have to move the needle when you speak. It doesn't matter if you talk a bunch and you say some smart things if no one really cares when you say it. So out of that group of criteria, I put Kirby in there. I put Ryan Day in there. Dabo. I put Dion in there for kind of different reasons, but it fits that criteria. And then I put Sark in there. And James Franklin, Kalen DeBoer, like those are guys kind of in that conversation as well. But what really stood out is it's so glaringly obvious. Nick Saban is still the most powerful voice in college football, and he's been retired for a year. And I don't know that changes anytime soon, David, because we're not watching him fade into the sunset. We're watching him on national TV every week. And now you're watching him over the left shoulder of the president any given week and having his name involved in more political matters. And you've got that coinciding with college football now and trying to get involved. So it may be that Saban's voice is going nowhere for quite a while.
Do you think, and not to make it political, but do you think that the Saban-Trump conversation can actually elicit change in college football?
Yeah, I do. His voice is probably the only one out of the college football world that would carry weight with the executive branch. I think his voice carries weight with the legislative portion of this. If you're going to get laws passed, I saw that lawyer yesterday complaining that Donald Trump's involvement or Nick Saban's involvement, that's a big bother. We're so close. And it was funny how this dude called out Nick Saban. He said, Nick Saban's made so much money off this setup and this system, and now we're close to paying the players, and he doesn't like it. And what that lawyer failed to mention, David, is how much money his firm and firms like his have made off college football being an abject disaster with no structure and no rules. So what it could be, just a suggestion, is that it may be a cash cow for legal types, is under threat of extinction with some rules and some structure that can be enforced. And they don't like that because they've been able to pave their driveways and put new coats of paint on their buildings because college football is a disaster.
Josh, I think we get a house settlement final this Thursday, right? Like it comes to a close, I think, this week.
That's the rumor on the street. Is there ever closure in this stuff? I don't know.
This step in the process will hopefully be done on Thursday. Hey, enjoy your trip. Talk to you soon, all right, brother?
I appreciate it, man.
See you, man. Josh Pate on the Bubby's Catering Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll have an open segment, and then we'll talk to Charean Williams. We had to move her time. Right now, we're talking bird dog. That's where hunters and landowners thrive. So if you're looking for premium hunting access, let Bird Dog take care of you. They want to maximize your land's potential. That's what they do, and Bird Dog is there to be your solution. They're Aggie owned and operated. They're passionate about connecting hunters with exceptional experiences while helping landowners optimize their property's value. Think of them in two different ways. Airbnb for the hunting community, but also for a company that's going to maximize the dollars on your land. That's what they love doing, and they're expanding their services to find that profitability for you, increase hunting revenue, and also tax benefit aggregation. Some of their landowners are making an extra $100 to $500 per acre of land. From first-time hunters to seasoned outdoorsmen, Bird Dog is committed to preserving that hunting tradition while optimizing your land. The website, birddogit.com, birddogit.com. think I just got a headache listening to that ESPN thing. Did you hear what Chris Canty said? Obi kind of warned me, but did you hear it, Nick? Obi
David,
warned
to
me.
be quite honest with you, those promos, I just turn my ears off. They're rarely about sports.
This was about sports.
What was the take?
Chris Canty said something about the Lakers and Luka trade, and like they can't sign him. But honestly, I don't know if you can build a championship team around Luka Doncic. And I'm like, bro, did they not just go to the NBA Finals a year ago?
They did.
If you go to the NBA Finals, can you win a championship?
I would believe so.
And we're not going to talk this much more than 30 seconds, but I got to say this out loud. I told you earlier, if they would have had that same conversation around Dirk Nowitzki after the 2006 NBA Finals, the 2011 NBA Finals never happened because Dirk failed against the Miami Heat. Honestly, the referees failed, right? I don't know if you remember that. You were like 9, right?
Yeah, I was like 8, 9.
Yeah. So, but 2006, you were, how old are you?
21 now.
Okay, so you weren't even.
I was 3.
You were 3. So that they failed. The referees failed the NBA, but that's okay. But if you would have written that story or said that about Dirk, you'd never get the 2011 championship. Stop with if a guy gets him to the NBA championship and he's the reason, stop with that. All right, you got some stuff that involves Aggie sports. This is an Aggie show, so let's do that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, so on the
I just hate stupidity. I just don't. You don't have to have a take about everything, guys. Sometimes, you know what? Just sit it out.
Yeah. Hate stupidity.
Hey, that's my new shirt. You don't have to laugh. It's not that funny.
No, I thought it was funny.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. No, yeah. So on the women's golf front, the number 19 Texas A&M women's golf team is currently playing in the NCAA Lubbock Regional. They actually teed off at 8:55 a.m. this morning, so good luck to them in round 3. But the current standings after round 2 yesterday, we have Wake Forest shooting even. They're in first place. Texas is shooting a +8. They are in second place. Iowa State and Arizona are tied for third with +26. Then UC Davis is in fifth place with shooting +27. And then the current cut line, so you have to be in the top 5 to be able to make the NCAA championship tournament. Purdue is shooting +28 at 6th place, and then A&M and Tennessee are both shooting +29.
All right, let's get one more in before we hit a break.
Yes, sir. And then going into the college football world, Sharon Moore, Michigan football head coach, he was suspended for the first 2 games of the season for the Connor Stallions situation, and he is also self-imposing his suspension for games 3 and 4 as well.
Huh. And I think some of the questions are, is that going to be enough for the NCAA?
We'll see. We'll see.
It'll be enough. They don't do anything. They suck. All right, we'll hit a break. We'll come back with Charean the Dream Williams here on TexAgs Live. Right now, a moment for Caldwell Country Chevrolet, Highway 21 in Caldwell, and online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. If you're looking for a selection that won't break the bank, you should check out Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They're stocking up on new vehicles all the time. You know that. I talk about them all the time. They're growing daily, but here's the deal. They're south of those big city prices, no dealer add-ons, and you see what is what you pay, right? Like that's what you're going to pay, and that's the beauty of them. They're locally owned Aggie alumni team, getting you the red carpet for when you get there, the amazing customer service, that complimentary pickup and delivery for their service customers, the complimentary oil change, as long as you own that vehicle from Caldwell Country Chevrolet. They have a great pre-owned inventory, moving fast. That means you'll get top dollar for your trade-in as well. 15-minute drive. Edge of Bryant, beginnings of Caldwell, short conversation away, but you'll see the difference when you step on the lot. And you do business with the great people at Caldwell Country Chevrolet. Highway 21 in Caldwell. Online, CaldwellCountryChevrolet.com. And we're back, TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Buppy's Catering Hotline. We're joined by Charean Williams, Pro Football Talk, Aggie Great, and of course the Hall of Famer. Charean, good morning.
Good morning. How are we doing?
I'm
Is
well.
it raining there?
You sound happy. Good morning to you.
Yeah, well, it's raining here. It's an ugly, ugly day, as it has been for so many days now. But I got my yoga in, so I'm in a good way right now.
There we go. That's great to hear. So let's talk about the good vibes, because this past weekend in Aggie sports, softball, baseball, you name it, was a great weekend. Tennis.
It was a great weekend. Watched a bunch of it and on streaming or whatever it was happened to be on. And baseball was obviously super exciting and nice to see softball do what they did. No doubt that was a huge way to close out the regular season for them. I'm looking forward to coming down for some playoff games for softball and then tennis. I mean, I'm ready to go to Waco to support our Aggies. Hopefully they both get there, and I'm ready to go. It's right there in our backyard. So we need to, when they get to the national championships, we need a big following there for the Aggie tennis teams. They've played great this year.
Charean, there was a time I was always in the know in the whole Texan situation, but I'm not there anymore, so I don't know. I know you do know. So catch me up. There's talks about maybe moving the headquarters away from the stadium, but is there talks of maybe having a different stadium, or is that on hold for now?
Yeah, it's on hold for now. They do want either renovations or a new stadium. We'll see what happens with that. But, there's only a handful of teams, I think there's 4, Bengals, Patriots, Panthers, and Texans who currently train at their stadium. The move has been, the Cowboys started it. Of course, Jerry, as we all know, you can talk about him as a GM, as I know Olin likes to do, and it's valid. But as a businessman, as an owner, he's the best ever. Unbelievable how he's been able to make money. And so they moved out to Frisco. Obviously, it's 35 miles from the stadium, and they have their thing out there. But it's a 91-acre complex where they have the 12,000-seat football stadium that they have Frisco high school teams play out of in playoff games, and then the restaurants and all the retail that they have right there. Jerry's just making $1 gazillion off that area that he built up, bought the land and put the buildings there and leased out all those restaurants and bars and everything else they have there. So just brilliant. So the Texans are looking at doing something like that. Obviously, one problem they have when you're in a stadium, there's other events at the stadium, and they don't own the stadium. So there's concerts, and there's other things that go on at that stadium. And so guess what? That's where the training facility is. So sometimes they're kicked out of their own stadium because of those events. So it just makes sense to have your training facility, headquarters, everything off-site. And if you can make money off of that too, then the better for the owner, obviously.
I don't know if this is out there, but have they identified any areas they're looking at, or is this still very preliminary?
It's preliminary, but it's Cal McNair, the owner, said Greater Houston, but there's a chance that it's not going to be in Harris County, that they'll move outside of Harris County somewhere, which will be interesting. A lot of the players live in Sugar Land and elsewhere, and this would affect them more than anybody else. With where they live, living arrangements and all that, trying to get to the team facility and employees of the Texans who have to go to the office daily. This affects them probably more than anyone else. For average fan, it's not going to affect you if they build a bunch of stuff around it like the Cowboys have. You'll enjoy it if you live close to there. It'll be a place to go, an entertainment district to go. But other than that, on a daily basis, it's not going to affect you.
One other thing on the Texans. How do they feel, or how do you feel about the remade offensive line?
I think, it remains to be seen, but I like the moves they make. I understand why they got rid of Laramie Tunsil, and, he was a penalty machine and all the penalties that he had. And so I understand why they made that move. I think they will be better in the offensive line. If they're not better, they're probably not going to have a better season, because we all know it starts and ends with the offensive line and the defensive line. Their defensive line is very, very good. They were good last year. They'll be good again this year if they stay healthy. But they got to get that offensive line right. And until you do that, you're not going to have a great offense. It was pretty good the year before last, which is why C.J. Stroud got Offensive Rookie of the Year. It was not as good last year, which is why they didn't play as well offensively. And C.J. Stroud didn't play as well. Now, he had some injuries at the receiver position, obviously, but it all boils down to that offensive line. He took too many hits, too many sacks. Some of them were his fault, but a lot of that's just the offensive line. It's got to improve.
Shereen, what are the Cowboys going to do at wide receiver?
Well, that's an interesting question. If they go into this season with the current receivers they have on their roster, they will not have a good season. I'll say that right now. You can't have one receiver because you can bracket him, you can double him, put help over the top. You do whatever you want with him, and they'll take CeeDee Lamb out of it, and the other guys just aren't good enough to be that number 2 receiver. I'll say that right now. They aren't good enough. The Cowboys have to go find a number 2 receiver. They had talks before the draft with an AFC North team. We all presume that was Pittsburgh talking about George Pickens. He'd be a great number 2 for the Cowboys. Now, he's got some discipline problems and those sorts of things. If you can handle that, Cowboys have never been scared of that except for Randy Moss, but they've never been scared of that. So if they think they can handle him that way, then he would be a good complementary receiver to CeeDee Lamb. But they've got to find one somewhere. Wherever that is, whether it's a free agent, Amari Cooper's still out there, and they're out there for reasons, obviously. They're old. A lot of the receivers who are still out there, including Amari Cooper, are old, and you wonder how much they have left in them. Amari Cooper isn't the same Amari Cooper that the Cowboys traded to the Browns for a fifth-round draft pick a few years ago. He's not, but he's probably better than anything they have on their roster. So not opposed to them getting a couple of receivers in there. I don't think they will. But I'm saying I'm not opposed to that and creating competition and see who that number 2 can be. Their offensive line's going to be very good. They passed on Matthew Golden to take Tyler Booker. Okay, your offensive line's going to be good. I just said you got to have a good offensive line to be good offense, but you can't have just one receiver to be good offense. And that's what the Cowboys have right now. Pass on Matthew Golden. So whether they like it or not, Matthew Golden and Tyler Booker for the rest of their careers are going to be compared. Cowboys fans are going to look, and if Matthew Golden becomes an all-pro, Pro Bowl receiver, you're going to say they should have taken Matthew Golden instead of Tyler Booker. I don't care how good Tyler Booker is. A guard inside with the 12th overall pick is a high price to pay for a guard.
Talking to Charean Williams here on TexAgs Live. Charean, I know that Jalen Milroe is trying to become a more efficient passer, and I know that's pretty much what every quarterback wants to do. But I guess my question is, how often in your time covering the league has a quarterback who maybe had some issues with that part of the game actually gotten significantly better at passing the football once they're actually in the league?
Yeah, well, you look at Anthony Richardson. I was talking to Chris Sims. I said, I talked to a couple of different people, but Chris was one of them. Can you improve accuracy? Can you become a more accurate passer and a more consistent? I mean, because that's Anthony Richardson's problem, obviously. He can make some great throws downfield, some highlight throws, but then he misses the ones that are right in front of him that you think he should make, and that, accuracy is 50% or less. And until you can improve that, you're not going to be a very good quarterback. And so, they think that you can get better at it. How much better, I don't know. But you can get better at that. We'll see. I mean, Milroe is just like Anthony Richardson. He's played more football than Anthony Richardson had 13 career starts before he went to the NFL. So you can get more experience, but can you get better with your accuracy? And that's what we're going to find out. And unless he does that, he's going to be like Anthony Richardson. There's going to be questions about if he can even be a backup quarterback in the league, much less a starting quarterback in the league.
Charean, great work as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's Charean Williams on the Buppy's Catering Hotline. We'll hit a break here in a moment. But you know what? I just want to read this text. Should I read this text? Yes, you should. All right. Ron and Irving. Ron and Irving says, because he put his name in there, Luka is not winning a championship. I don't know if he is or isn't. The question was, can he?
I think he can, yes. He's talented enough to win a championship, obviously.
Like, is he one of the 5 or 10 best players in the league?
I would think so.
Is he one of the 3 best players in the league when healthy?
I would believe so.
Yeah, so I mean, that's all you can ask for, right? Like, and I don't believe, how old is he, 26?
Around that age, yeah.
I don't think you can make a decision on a guy that, like,
I think he was like 20 when he got drafted, around that age.
yeah, and he won a bunch of championships, by the way, in the Euro League. So with Real Madrid of both teams, just saying. Even though we've had a terrible year, and Barcelona might win it all. All right, let's do this. Let's hit a break. When we come back on TexAgs Live, Sutton Turner is going to talk to us. You've seen him on the fan show about the Aggie Century Tree. We'll get an update on that and how you can help. So we'll do that here in a moment. Right now, we're talking about heritage films and ranch films. Their farm and ranch films are awesome. If you don't know about it, I'm about to tell you about it because they want to preserve your family's ranch and legacy, not just capturing video and pretty pictures. It's about much more than that. It's about transferring the values that built your operation and the generations who are going to inherit it. Chance McClain, my buddy, has interviewed thousands of people across this country. And one thing he's discovered that's very profound, these aren't just businesses. They are blueprints for building character. And when he's gone around and interviewed these folks, you just find so much out about your family's legacy, your family's history, and the work ethic that separates you guys from everyone. Farm and Ranch Films captures the wisdom that your grandkids are going to need. Visit the website, yourheritagefilm.com, and click on the Farm and Ranch section of the website, or call them up, 713-893-8341, 713-893-8341, to preserve not just your story, but your family's foundation. It is Heritage Films. And we're back on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Sutton Turner's in studio with us. You know him from the fan show and around town, of course. He's taken up the mantle of the cherished Texas A&M tradition of reviving the Aggie Century Tree Project. many of you know about it, but we're going to kind of investigate his personal connection with it. Sutton, thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
So start us off with it. Like, what is your personal connection with this project?
Yeah, so this is taking acorns from the Century Tree between the Academic Plaza and Bolton Hall, right there next to Sully statue, taking those acorns from the Century Tree and growing them up into be seedlings, and then selling these seedlings to raise money for Aggie scholarships or student aid. So that's the whole premise. So it was originally started by Andy Duffy, class of 78. He had what was called the Aggie Century Tree Project, and he failed in 2008, failed in 2009 to raise any trees. 2010 through 2020, he raised enough scholarships for about $170,000 worth of Aggie scholarships.
Wow.
Unfortunately, we lost Andy in 2020. So in 2021, and I bought a tree from Andy in 2018. He used to live in Castlegate, literally 2 streets from me. And Andy would always hand water everything. So he was always outside. So I'd drive by his house and he would always have a story about taking a tree to somebody or something, some cool Aggie story. And so in 21, I tried to grow trees, failed. 22, tried to grow trees, failed. 23, I grew 10 trees. And then this last year, I connected with somebody that knew Andy and helped Andy grow trees in Huntsville, Alabama. I was on my way to the Florida Gator game. And I have 200 trees this year. And so with the 200 trees, I've just recently signed with the Association of Former Students that the first endowment scholarship will be for Aggie rings.
Oh, wow.
For people that cannot afford their Aggie ring. And so that's our first goal. And then after that, I would love to do a presidential scholarship, which is $100,000. And so I'm just really excited to carry on the legacy and some of the stories, David. So like, the first tree, so we've just been selling trees now for basically 2 months. The first tree that I sold, a big group of Aggies from Rosenberg, Texas called me. The Dormans, class of 83 and 84. Dormans reached out and they said, hey, listen, we want to buy one of your trees. It's like, awesome. We want to buy it for our nephew and his wife. They had a son, Nolan, that passed away at birth. And we want to give an Aggie Century tree to them. I was like, absolutely. So I drove it down there, did pictures with them and everything. It was amazing. I get a email back from Megan, Nolan's mom. She said, thank you so much for growing this tree. It's going to be in my backyard. And every day I'm going to water it and I'm going to think about my son.
Wow.
And so there's just we sing it all the time. There's a spirit ne'er be told. There's just something. This is just a live oak tree.
Yeah.
But because it comes from the school that we love so much, we have a connection to it. And there's 2 tree shipped out to Frisco yesterday to a couple in Frisco. They got engaged in 23 under the Century Tree. They want to have a Century Tree in their backyard. Somebody from Katy reached out to me this morning. They got engaged underneath the Century Tree. They want to have a tree. And it's just, they want to have a connection. And the fact that this money is going to scholarships, I think a lot of people got behind when Andy did it. And now I hope that we will continue that to raise a whole bunch of money for scholarships.
Talk to me about the why it sometimes it's hard to get this going.
Well, so even though I graduated and have a master's degree in agriculture from A&M, I'd never grown trees. And so I didn't know how to do it. Luckily, I connected with the root maker who makes these pots and makes these skirts, and they actually walked me through all the things that I had done wrong in the first 2 years. to correct it, and that's why I have 200 trees this year. So I built a big greenhouse.
Yep.
On your way home, you can see it, so that I can raise 500 seedlings every single year. And what's great about this live oak tree, if you go from Roanoke, Virginia, all the way across SEC country, all the way to California, and all the way up to Seattle, that's the band that these trees can grow in and grow extremely hardy. And we're basically genetically selecting a very, very hardy tree, and we're transplanting that hardy tree basically with its sapling to those types of locations. And I can ship this pretty much anywhere in the country. Now, when they get larger, and I'm going to hold back a bunch of trees every year because there's a lot of people that don't want to take care of this, but they would like a 2-inch in caliper tree.
Oh, sure, yeah.
That Mother Nature will take care of it. And so I'm going to grow a whole bunch of trees. So in 2026 and 2027, we're going to have a whole bunch of trees that I hope to be I'll have to deliver those across the state of Texas and wherever these people are. But again, it's going to be to raise money for scholarships and student aid.
We got about 45 seconds left. Have you had much conversation with Andy's family?
Yeah. So his brother lives in Houston because the Aggie Ring Scholarship is called the Aggie Century Tree Scholarship in memory of Andy Duffy 79. Because I want people to know and remember that Andy Duffy did this. You know what? And he would never tell anybody this, do social media. He gave free century trees to every parent that had silver taps for their kids that lost their kids across the street while they were a current student. Never did it on social media, but he would send those people free trees to plant in memory of their lost child.
Sudden, wonderful story. Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. We'll hit a break. When we come back on TexAgs Live, Connor O'Gara has got a bunch of lists. A&M's involved in those lists. We'll talk about it next here on TexAgs. I'm sorry. What is this song we're listening to? Is this a Nick Savage
That's
special?
Pink Floyd, dude.
Oh, my bad.
Come on.
Sorry, bro. Connor O'Gara's going to make fun of me. It's TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Buppy's Catering hotline. Connor O'Gara with us from Saturday Down South. Connor, I got to give you some props. Sometimes you become show content because you have these ideas that I sometimes don't think about. So, for instance, when I started at TexAgs, you were one of the first, and I hate you for it, that was mentioning like Jimbo's prehistoric offense, and it turned out to be the case. So I guess I'm going to start things off today with what is A&M's blind spot this season that maybe I'm not seeing?
It's a good question because I think we all have blinders on. I know I've had blinders on in the past. I think it's perhaps the downfield passing with Marcel Reed. That's the one thing that I don't know is going to get better, just because I don't think we saw flashes of it during his first year as a starter that made me think that's imminent. Now, you might be able to work around that and still have a very productive offense. I ranked A&M as the number 5 offense in the SEC coming into this year 2 in the Colin Klein scheme. I love all the starters back on the offensive line. Love the ground game, especially if Le'Veon Moss is able to make a full return from the knee injury last year. But yeah, the downfield passing, if you can't throw the ball downfield in this conference, you become a lot easier to defend. And maybe that's too simple to look at it, because you can still do a lot of things, but that could be the thing that limits A&M. And if all of a sudden we're talking about a group that feels like you can only play in one style of game, then obviously the potential and the upside is limited.
Connor, how much of a difference will it be having some wide receivers that can get some separation? Because I think that was, yes, Marcel needs to grow at that position. But I also think a lot of the guys that he had seemed like they were covered no matter what.
Yeah, Casey Concepcion is going to be obviously a huge part of that. And what he did as a freshman at NC State, becoming a freshman All-American, there are high hopes that he can be that guy, because Marcel Reed needs it. I mean, let's just call it what it is. I don't know that the Amari Niblack thing is going to necessarily work out, and he's going to become this stud, unbelievable separator in that offense. I think, he kind of struggled behind Gunnar Helm on the depth chart at Texas last year, but there's still going to be that hope that Concepcion can stretch the field for you, and he can do things that are yard after the catch, that allow a quarterback to feel like, all right, I can dump the ball off to this guy, 5 yards past the line of scrimmage, and he could turn it into 20. A&M didn't have really that guy either last year, and I do wonder what it's going to look like. Noah Thomas is somebody that can fill a specific role, and that's not to say that A&M won't miss him at times. I think he's going to do things at Georgia that they missed, but you're right. They didn't really have that separator last year, and it's kind of tough to run an offense and run a successful passing game when you don't really have that element.
And I'll throw in another name, Mario Craver. I thought in flashes for Mississippi State, he was fantastic.
Yeah, and how much of that, too, is we tend to, I don't want to say overvalue what true freshmen do, but I do kind of want to see what it looks like more so against SEC competition. He's a guy that if you look at his production last year, some of which came against those non-SEC teams, you're kind of wondering, all right, how's that going to translate year 2? Is he going to be one of those guys that makes that big jump? They obviously need him to on the outside. So much of this A&M passing game will depend on that, and it'll depend on finding those guys that can have bounce back years or, step up and have that natural progression. And obviously he's somebody that they have high hopes for.
Talking to Connor O'Gara here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers. Another thing about this offense, something I brought up with Josh Pate earlier, is that like A&M just has not had a consistent voice at quarterback since I've been here. It has been 2-3 quarterbacks every year, like 21, 22, 23, 24. So I'm just curious what kind of steps Marcel can make if he is the guy for an entire season. Because a year ago, I thought it was going to be Connor Wigman all season, and that didn't work out.
I did too. And look, I still have my Connor Wigman stock. I still have my Haynes King stock. It's still there. It's doing pretty well, actually. I don't know. I think I was going to sell high after the Georgia game. All those overtimes, people were just heaping praise on Haynes King, being like, man, he's such a gamer. Look what he's doing for Brent Key. And obviously the job that he's done to be at this place in college football, it's been fun to watch. I know even Aggie fans, that's a guy that you can still root for. But yeah, I think Marcel Reed just being kind of Kellen Mondish would be a win for A&M. Go back to 2020. And I bring that up all the time with A&M because 2020 worked because you had a quarterback that stayed healthy, who knew what he could do in an offense, and you had stability on the offensive line. A&M can do that this year. In theory, that's all on the table. And you might criticize that offense and say, well, it can't do this, this, and this, but it can still provide you that floor. Now, A&M obviously had a great defense to go with that unit in 2020. And if this group doesn't have that, that could be troublesome. But I think just being able to stay healthy is such an underrated thing. I mean, when was the last time that A&M had a quarterback stay healthy from start to finish? It's 2020, right? Yep. Like that's what we're talking about here. I mean, yeah, that's the last time that A&M didn't have multiple quarterbacks starting multiple games. Go figure, it was the COVID season.
Well, and you mentioned Le'Veon earlier. When he went down, the team was a completely different team. So, considering he gets back to form, which I think he will, and Reuben Owens, who you missed for 95% of that season, and oh, by the way, Amari Daniels looked pretty darn good as the number 3 running back, as the lead back at the end of the season. Just what are your thoughts on that running back room?
As much backfield depth as anyone has in the SEC. I mean, A&M truly has that. Now, so much of that, Moss returning healthy would be huge because that's an all SEC back. He was sprinting towards 1,000-yard season last year. It's kind of one of the more underrated moments that people don't talk about was him taking that hit on the left sideline of the South Carolina game. And I understand that A&M still, dug itself in too many holes down the stretch. And Elko talked about, the struggles of just basic zone coverage. We've talked before about the defensive linemen not playing as well as they could have down the stretch and kind of putting the team on its back. But you're right. I mean, I think that Moss injury was really pivotal, and it did kind of change the things that A&M wanted to do. Now, getting Reuben Owens back late in the season when it looked like he was going to be a season-ending injury type guy, I think that was really important. And Amari Daniels is someone that showed immense promise, but they kind of struggled with some of the backfield depth early on last year. And now, in theory, that shouldn't be an issue. Maybe that allows Moss to kind of come back a little bit slower. They can be a little bit more conservative with his return and not feel like they have to thrust him back into a role where he's getting 15 to 20 touches per game. It's a nice luxury to have. It looks like a clear strength of this A&M roster.
Connor, you've probably heard this from me before. If you haven't, I apologize. My audience has heard it too many times. But I maintain the Le'Veon injury, not only was it just a season-changing thing, but you just go back to certain moments. The Texas game, I thought A&M got their butts kicked in that game, even though they had a chance to make it a game in the fourth quarter. But I don't think you miss out on both 4th and 1s against Texas from the end zone if Le'Veon Moss is there. You can go back to the South Carolina game. I know that they fell in a huge hole, came roaring back, even without Le'Veon. But I still feel like some of those games are played differently. You can't live in this fantasy world, but I just say that just getting one of those 4th and 1s against Texas kind of maybe changes the way we look at it. Making a tackle against USC or making a tackle against Auburn, just an easy tackle changes the way we look at that entire season. And then I kind of look at DJ Lagway, the way his season ended, and Marcel's. Even though both of their numbers were the same, the fact that those teams won one in November and one didn't changes the way we look at those QBs.
Definitely does. Game of inches, no doubt about it. I mean, DJ Lagway, I'll bang the drum for, if he's healthy and if he's able to actually come back and throw, which he has not been doing all offseason, finally just being able to throw. We'll wait and see how that missed spring kind of impacts him. Some of the high degree of difficulty throws that DJ Lagway has been making, you just kind of step back and go, whoa. That's why this was a 5-star guy who Florida fans wanted to see play immediately. And I think very different his skill set is than Marcel Reed's. But you're right, in that this is truly a game of inches. I mean, you could point to a lot of teams in the SEC, A&M being one of them, of man, this play here, this play there, this drop in the end zone in overtime at Auburn, and this injury. Like, obviously, a lot of teams that are competitive in the SEC could point to those moments. A&M's were just so defined. And they were so defined down the stretch after everybody knows that they were the last SEC team to be unbeaten in conference play. And when you can't take advantage of that, of course, you're going to look back at all those little things that happen. Even if A&M wins the bowl game, if they get one defensive stop down the stretch there, how different is the conversation about this team? And are people saying, oh, well, it's the same old A&M if it's a 9-win season with a bowl victory? I don't know, but it does feel like the margin for error is very slim.
Talking to Connor O'Gara here on TexAgs Live. All right, so your coaches' rankings, Elko came in at number 10. Talk to me about how you came up with that number.
You have to include the Duke stuff with him. In my opinion, that's part of the Elko conversation, because I know there are a lot of people who go, oh, well, it's just an 8-win season at A&M. Why would he be ranked ahead of Billy Napier? Like, why is he considered to be better than Clark Lee, who just had a historically great season at Vandy, which is extremely hard to come by? But I still think that you have to factor in what he did at Duke, a place that had zero expectations whatsoever, where he's getting College Game Day to come there because they're nationally relevant. And who knows, that Riley Leonard injury, how that impacted them year 2. But to have a 24-14 mark through 3 seasons as a head coach, wherein I think at moments during all 3 of those seasons, we've all looked up and go, dang, Mike Elko's doing a heck of a job. I think that matters. I think that context is important. So I don't think he's quite worthy to be considered, a top 7 coach in the SEC just yet. Let's see what it looks like if you can actually get to an SEC championship or you can finish in the top 15. But for me, I think Elko's done a really solid job during his first 3 seasons as an FBS head coach.
As a curiosity, why was Mark Stoops number 9, A&M's almost head coach?
Yeah, it's tough because I'm someone that's always banged the drum for Stoops as a top 15 coach in the sport. And I'm now just having to get to a place where I have to dock him in these rankings because he is the longest tenured SEC head coach. It did so at a place that was, left for dead. Let's call it what it is. That was a rebuilding job that he took over back in 2013. And they finally see this bowl streak come to an end this past year, just a disastrous year. And there's really not a ton of promise that makes you think that he's going to turn it around. But the guy's the winningest coach in program history. He won more games at Kentucky than Bear Bryant. We're talking about a guy that elevated the floor of Kentucky football and did so with a stretch from 2018 to 2023 that, man, I don't think anybody would have seen coming. Now we're looking at this contract in a much different way, and he feels like someone who is past his prime in Lexington, but I don't think that can be totally written off, but it does feel like he's trending in the wrong direction.
Connor, does Georgia take a step back from last year's step back, if that's even a fair way to phrase it? I know that you have Kirby as your number 1. He'd be my number 1 as well if I made a list, but does Georgia take a step back this year?
I don't think Georgia misses the semifinals for 3 consecutive years. I think Kirby Smart's too good for that. Now, there are questions about this team in ways that we weren't asking the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, you talked about earlier, what could we have blinders on? I had blinders on with the Georgia pass catchers last year. I thought they'd be okay without Brock Bowers, without Ladd McConkey, because I thought they actually had more depth in that receiver room. And then it ends up being a group that had more drops than anybody in college football. And you're looking at them going, man, who can make a single play that isn't just a wide open catch? And that was the difficult thing for Georgia. But I tend to think this is how Kirby Smart likes it. I don't think he likes being preseason number 1. History has shown us, of course, the last 2 decades, only one preseason number 1 in the AP poll has gone on to win a national championship. It was 2017 Alabama. Georgia was preseason number 1 the last 2 years. It's pretty hard to go, from preseason number 1 to win a title. And I think this year, Georgia being in that maybe 5-6 type range is exactly the type of preamble that they need with a quarterback in Gunnar Stockton that feels a whole lot more like Stetson Bennett than Carson Beck did. And maybe for Georgia, that's exactly what they need. So I do think that while Georgia kind of lacks a lot of these household names in the preseason, CJ Allen's a really good one, Christian Miller on that defensive line, I do think that they're a team that people are going to kind of go into the season wondering, man, are they really about to fall off? No. This is when Kirby Smart is usually at his best.
Why is Nush your number 1?
Explaining that to A&M fans is hard, man. That's really, really hard. They're like, I watched Marcel Reed cook that guy, and I watched him just absolutely turtle in College Station. Credits Kyle Field for that. Look, I'm not going to push back on any A&M fans that want to resist that take. I totally get it, especially when you see something in person like that. It makes a big difference. But I still think what Nuss did after that game to be able to improve, to me, it showed that he's as good as there is in the country at just picking a defense apart. I think the ability to make every single throw on the football field and to harness some of those gunslinger ways that he has is what's going to allow him to take another step. And I don't think he's a perfect quarterback just yet. I actually think some of the downfield numbers can improve, but I love the weapons that they put around him with Nick Anderson coming over from Oklahoma, Barryon Brown coming over from Kentucky. And I just think they have a ton of weapons for him to work with. If they can figure out that offensive tackle replacement with Will Campbell, Emory Jones off to the NFL, man, Garrett Nussmeier is going to put up some massive, massive numbers. And I'm just very, very bullish on the things that he showed once he worked through that midseason lull that began at Texas A&M.
Well, I was going to say, actually, that game to me, a tale of two halves in multiple ways. I thought Nuss in that first half was amazing. But back to that point, when there is pass rush, and you mentioned the offensive line, that's got to be a major question. A&M's got to figure out their defensive line. I recognize that. LSU's got to figure out losing Campbell.
Yeah, and fortunately for LSU, the interior of their offensive line looks really good. But yeah, Nuss isn't going to scramble. I think it was PFF had him for 7 scrambles on the 153 instances that he was pressured. Like, this is not going to be what he's going to do, and that's not in his skill set. And it's what can you do to kind of work around that. But yeah, LSU I think is a playoff team this year. I think they're one of 4 SEC teams that will make the college football playoff, in part because they should be a top 10 offense, top 5 offense in college football, with Nuss coming back, with Caden Durham, the running back who showed so much promise as a true freshman last year, and some of the guys that they have, Harlan Berry coming in as a true freshman that I think they're really high on as well. But yeah, LSU is in such a different a different conversation if they win that game at Texas A&M. I think we can all say that.
How big of a year is this for Brian Kelly, considering he's been good, but he hasn't been, I think, what they expected, although that first year was phenomenal.
Yeah, it's put up or shut up time. And that's not to say he gets fired if it's a year that doesn't end with a playoff berth, because I don't think people tend to look at the buyout numbers. A&M might have ruined our perception of what buyouts are, but nonetheless, Brian Kelly is sitting there knowing that his floor has been a 9-win season. He had the longest active streak of 10-win seasons. It finally came to an end this past year because they won 9 games. Now, I do think that at LSU, there is an understanding that you go there, you win national titles. When your 3 predecessors have all won national titles and your predecessor is not even coaching right now, but he still won a national title, there is an expectation that Brian Kelly and that 9-figure contract that he signed, it was going to yield a national title. Year 4 with this type of roster, with the exact defensive coordinator that you handpicked, and Harold Perkins Jr. coming back with Whit Weeks on defense, there is an expectation that now's your time. You don't have any excuses. This team has less excuses, in my opinion, than even that year 2 team that started off number 5 in the country. I think they have more pieces in place that suggest their floor should be that much higher. And if LSU is missing the playoff this year, people who have defended Brian Kelly, like myself, we're not really going to have a leg to stand on, because it will be very fair to question what he can do in these matchups against elite teams.
Connor, last thing for you. How bullish are you on Arch Manning and what he can do after watching and seeing everything that needed to be done, but now he's the guy, all the film, all the reps are going to be on him?
I think Arch is the real deal, and that doesn't mean that he's going to be perfect. It doesn't mean he's going to win a Heisman Trophy. It doesn't mean that he's going to win a national championship this year, but it does mean, in my opinion, that the people who are saying, it's just a last name, I think they're going to be pretty quiet this year. I do. And I do think that if you look at what he's done in a limited sample size, you realize that you can do everything on a football field with him. And that's the intriguing thing. Even if you just take away the last name, you're like, this dude has size, this dude can run, this dude can locate. He needs to be able to improve with that mental clock. That's the area that's still kind of giving him trouble going into this first year as a starter. He needs to be a second quicker, especially with a very new look Texas offensive line. But man, I'm a believer. I am a believer. I don't think he's going to need to do a ton of heavy lifting with that Texas defense. I think it's going to be the best returning defense in all of college football. And I do think that Arch is going to be set up for a lot of success, even if some of these wins are like 24-10 type victories, wherein he only makes a few of these, dazzling throws. I still think the takeaway from this season will be Arch is a stud, and I'm on record saying this. I think Arch comes back in 2026. I don't think he goes to the NFL draft. I think he wants multiple years as a starter, and I do think the people that are anti-Arch will have a really tough time justifying that argument by season's end.
Connor, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much for making time.
Anytime. Appreciate it.
See you, buddy. Connor O'Gara, Puppy's Catering Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll come back with Luke Evangelist, talk a little Aggie basketball, and also Ags in the pros. Right now, we're talking about a new sponsor, Aggieland Hydration. They're a mobile IV hydration company that was founded just a year ago, and they're serving the Bryan College Station area. They offer services like IV hydration, Botox, weight loss options as well. Their IV hydration can be done. The first way is to start enhancing a healthier lifestyle. Dehydration is one of the leading causes of fatigue, stress, and anxiety, and other major issues. And IV can also be a great way to ensure you're receiving all of your necessary vitamins and minerals. Overall, their mission is to bring a more personalized, accessible wellness to a broader range of clientele in the Brazos Valley. You want to call them up, set up an appointment, you can. You can text them, 979-217-1561. That is 979-217-1561. It's Aggieland Hydration. Check them out. And we're back, TexAgs Live. As a reminder, the final segment of the program is coming up here at 10:50. But right now, caller number 12, 979-693-1150. We're going to hook you up with your choice of a dozen pepperoni rolls or a large one-topping pizza from Double Dave's. They've been serving Aggie Land since 1984 with your favorite pizza and, of course, those world-famous pepperoni rolls. Reliable in-house delivery, bringing piping hot goodness straight to your door. Just click on doubledaves.com, and your favorites are on their way. Luke Evangelist in studio for Ags in the Pros. Certainly, Luke is Luke. Luke, what do you have for us?
I've got a lot of stuff, and I'm
Okay.
going to let you pick. You want UFL, NBA, MLB?
Let's go. We'll end with MLB because I think it'll tie into my next segment.
Yes.
We'll start with the NBA.
Nothing like warming you up for a Texas A&M Hall of Famer from the MLB. But we'll get to that in a second.
The way you said that was a bit strange. It was like,
All right, we're not gonna do this bit to start. What'd you say? I actually just zoned out. Would you say NBA or UFL?
I said gorgeous ladies of wrestling.
Okay, so you might be more familiar in that realm than I am. So I'm just gonna start with NBA because who wasn't watching the NBA playoffs last night? And seeing,
I wasn't. I didn't watch.
Okay, well, you missed a crazy
I watched
game.
Sunday night, but I didn't watch last night.
Two Aggies going head to head with DeAndre Jordan's Nuggets and
How did
Alex
it go?
Caruso's Thunder. Well,
I know that AC Fresh was okay.
He was very fresh. His team blew a double-digit lead late, but it was not his fault. He could do no wrong. 20 points in 26 minutes. He also had 1 rebound, 6 assists, 5 steals, 2 blocks, all in just 26 minutes. Alex Caruso became the first player in NBA history to have at least 2 blocks, 5 steals, and 5 threes in a playoff game.
Holy smokes.
And his team lost.
So DeAndre Jordan.
Well, DeAndre Jordan did not play.
But he was there.
But he was there, and you could argue that his energy on the bench was palpable.
You could argue that.
And you could argue that he was the reason why Aaron
Did you
Gordon...
say palpable for a particular reason?
What now? I didn't...
good
That just word is just engraved in my mind. Sorry. But Aaron Gordon hit a last-second 3. It was a crazy game, and I would recommend you should watch the NBA playoffs. Or at least
I just when my teams lose, it just becomes harder to watch.
And you've got a lot of teams as
2. I have 2.
Yeah.
And of anybody who works here, I'm allowed to like those 2 teams.
Yeah, you are.
I've worked for both.
And anyone who disputes that should be removed from their interview immediately.
Oh yeah, that's right. There was that situation. I forgot about that.
Yeah. Continuing on the NBA, Quentin Jackson and the Pacers
love him.
Beat the Bucks in 5 games. Q still has not played yet, but
it's okay.
That's all right because his energy again on the bench is
palpable.
I couldn't find another word, but you said it perfectly. Yeah. And they already stunned the Cavs in Game 1, and Game 2 is tonight at 6 p.m. if you'd like to tune in and watch the Pacers play, because who wouldn't want to watch the Pacers?
Some people. There are people.
Well, if you don't like watching the Pacers, you could maybe like the UFL.
United Football League.
Yep. And there is no USFL anymore.
I learned that a few times in the last few weeks.
So Leon O'Neal is continuing to have a breakout season for the Houston Roughnecks. They just beat the Memphis Showboats in a thriller, 21-20. He was third on the team in tackles with 6 total, 5 solo, a tackle for loss, and a pass breakup. And the Roughnecks are now just 1 game back in their division of the Birmingham Stallions, which is the home of Jay Sternberger. And they will play next week on Sunday, May 11th. So you can watch 2 Aggies go head-to-head, one on the offensive side of the ball and one guarding him potentially on the defensive side of the ball. And Anthony Hines, another player that's having a breakout season. The DC Defenders, his team did not play well. They lost 38-14, but he led his team in tackles with 7 total tackles, including 5 solo and 1 tackle for loss. And then we had the San Antonio Brahmas and the Birmingham Stallions playing. Kellen Mond did not play, and the Brahmas lost 26-3, but his former teammate, Jay Sternberger, found the end zone finally after not exactly having the best start to the season. Sternberger had 2 catches for 15 yards and a touchdown.
Excellent stuff. You want to get a little MLB news in here?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, hold that. Let me ask you quick, because we got to do it quick, but I want to end with that because that'll tie into my next segment.
Yeah.
Duke Miles now official.
Yeah.
That he's no longer with the team. What's the feeling like they're going to be able to replenish that production?
Yeah, I still believe there are pieces out there in the backcourt that they can refit kind of how this team is going to look and potentially even upgrade at that position. Maybe there's players out there that...
So upgrades are possible too.
Yeah, upgrades are certainly possible, and there are players that they're working on right now that offer a different kind of skill set, because Duke Miles was a little bit more suited for this system, being able to shoot threes, maybe better than someone like Marcus Hill, but still, his game was proven at the Power 5 level. And anytime you lose a player of that caliber who you thought you were going to have on your team, you got to adjust and fill that gap. And when you're building a team in the portal like this, you obviously want to get the best players available, but sometimes kids get their feelings hurt maybe when they get recruited over and they feel like you're bringing in players at the same position. And Duke Miles, that same exact thing happened to him at Virginia. He went where he thought he was going to be starting in the backcourt. It starts to get a little bit crowded when they bring in a guy like Jakari White, who's taller than him, is a better scorer than him. And so he decommits from Virginia, finds Texas A&M, and bringing in Marcus Hill, Rylan Griffin, two guys who would challenge him for playing time. You can see why he would maybe want a different place to play. And so at the end of the day, that's a kid now that's looking for his fourth school in 2 months. And if you're A&M, there are better options out there, and you can trust that this coaching staff will find someone that will not just maybe replace the production you thought you would get from Duke Miles, but someone who could do even better.
All right, quickly, MLB, you have an update for us? Because we're going to interview this person now.
Yeah, Ross Stripling retiring after 9 seasons in the MLB. A Hall of Famer in the Texas A&M Hall of Fame was just recently inducted in the 2024 class. So obviously, it's never I just feel honored, honestly, to be sandwiched in between a national columnist and a Texas A&M Hall of Famer that you're about to interview. So congratulations on a great career, Ross.
Thank you, Luke. Very good job. All right, if your organization or business is looking for an opportunity to engage with Aggies, then you need to check out the Association of Former Students. They bring Aggies of all ages together during marquee events held throughout the year. We're talking about all Aggie Hullabaloo, Aggie Rain Day, The Gathering. They welcome tens of thousands of guests, and there are many sponsorship and vendor opportunities to get your brand in front of those attendees. These events offer a wide variety of both digital and in-person options to promote your brand and get it in front of all those attendees. They have on-site presence, activation, recognition, and social media posts, and much, much more. There's also advertising opportunities in both the Texas Aggie Magazine and the Aggie Newsletter, which are seen by over 230,000 people. So if your business is ready to engage with Aggies, then partner with the organization that's been supporting the Aggie Network for over 140 years. For more information on options available through the association, please email sponsorships@aggienetwork.com. And we're back here on TexAgs Live. We're presented by David Gardner's Jewelers Rollo Insurance Studio. Let's go to the Buppies Catering Hotline. Let's talk to Ross Stripling, who just announced after 9 seasons in the MLB that he's going to retire. He's an Aggie Hall of Famer, and he's here on TexAgs Live. Ross, good morning, buddy. How you doing?
Yeah, good morning, man. Doing well. How are you?
Wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us. So we want to celebrate your awesome career. Talk to me about your decision to retire. Why did you come up with it now? What was your reasoning?
Yeah, this is funny. This is the first time I've talked about it to anyone that's not family or really close friends. So all this will kind of be the first time I've spoken it out loud. I showed up for one. We got a son that's 5 weeks old. He's our third son. His name is Case. He basically was born on opening day. So all the while knew that he was coming. So I showed up to Kansas City in spring training, and it was kind of make the team or bust, to be honest. I just knew with the third boy coming and kind of where I was physically and mentally, I wanted to be in the big leagues, or I wanted to, call it a career. And last day they said, Strip, we don't see you on the team as of now. And, they said all the right things. They wanted me to go to AAA. I opted out because you never know, another team might want you. That didn't happen. Other couple of AAA offers. Long story short, nothing in the big leagues. And honestly thankful for that. It made my decision very easy. Opening day was weird, but I was holding a newborn baby, watching a lot of my former teammates play, and just kind of came and went. And a month later, I was still at peace with the decision. I miss the guys. I miss the locker room, the travel, the amenities of being a big leaguer for sure. But I haven't really missed pitching all that much, which I'm thankful for. And obviously I'm in the trenches over here with 3 kids. But, I just think it ran its course, man. It's not like I've had the 2 best seasons of my career the last 2 years. Spring training, if I would have thrown 12 scoreless innings and didn't make the team, maybe a different thing. But, I feel like the game was telling me, Strip, it's okay to move on. And so here I am, a month into retirement. Yesterday was a lot of fun. A lot of people reaching out, reminiscing on some cool memories with some teammates and stuff. But, still feel good about the decision here today.
Well, I was going to say, especially considering you get to be a dad, right? Like that's for 9 years, you've been so busy. Your life is going one way, and yeah, you're involved, but now you can focus a lot of your energy towards your family.
Yeah, exactly. And that's, I'm really excited about that. I've got 3 boys under my wing here, 4, 2, and newborn. So we have our hands full, and before I know it, they'll be playing baseball and other sports, and I'll be so busy I won't even have time to reminisce on my career. I'll be nose deep in their careers, just getting going in a way. So I just I'm really excited for this. Everyone says it, it's like this chapter of fatherhood. And we're just in it right now, so enjoying it before they go to school and all that kind of stuff, just kind of being present in the moment and, being home and being put in a place where I haven't spent a summer in Houston since I was a kid, really in Texas since I was a kid, so just looking forward to that.
Ross, can you, and I think you've probably said it on this show before, but kind of remind the audience of the nickname and how it all came? Because I remember thinking back to it, I was like, that's right, that's how it started. Yeah. All right, so I think it was 2017 or 18, MLB came out with what was called Players Weekend, and they wanted us to put nicknames on the back, where normally just say Stripling. They wanted everyone to come up with a nickname, and MLB was trying to do this initiative where players could show more of their personality, and, we could actually wear some crazy things on our cleats, put some stuff on our bats, obviously the nicknames. So everyone called me Strip. So I was like, all right, I'll put Strip. And MLB came back and said, no, that's actually too PG-13. We need it even more dumbed down than that. That's just too risque. And I was like, well, I didn't want to be the guy that didn't have a nickname, So one of my teammates was like, why don't you just throw Chicken Strip on there? And I was like, no one calls me Chicken Strip. That's not my nickname. I've been called a million things. No one has ever consistently called me Chicken Strip. Lo and behold, I put that on my name, and that is just taken off like wildfire. And I think I'll be Chicken Strip forever. And kind of, on that post you're talking about yesterday, one last time, just kind of said, with love, Chicken Strip as kind of a sign off on that nickname. And it was a lot of fun. And then the MLB told the next year, Rich Hill put Dick Mountain on there. And I was like, okay, they really lowered their bar the next year. So it could have just been Strip, but instead Chicken Strip caught on, and it's been great. So it's honestly, it's been fun to have. How about some of the relationships you've made in the big leagues? I want to get to A&M here in a moment, but just some dear friends and just some people who have impacted you deeply.
Yeah. The first and foremost, the one I always say, and I claim he's an Aggie, even though he doesn't claim us, his wife is an Aggie. That's Clayton Kershaw. He was committed to A&M, even though he knew he was going to go, top couple picks in the draft. I think getting drafted and developed by the Dodgers in general was a huge blessing. But then for Kershaw to be there and to take me under his wing in the way that he knows how, and to just kind of watch him work and learn through osmosis from him. And really, before I even was a father, to watch him be a father and navigate being a professional baseball player and a father and all that stuff. I mean, it just what I learned from him and him as a mentor, I can't speak highly enough. And then the Dodger guys are probably the guys I'm still closest with. Kike, Justin Turner, Corey Seager. Some of those guys, our wives are really close. We had 8 guys get married in one off season, going from 17 into 18. So like that group is really, really close. And now we're all starting to have children. So like our kids are similar ages. I feel like we'll all just, hopefully stay friends throughout the rest of our lives. And then going over to Toronto, kind of joining the Vladdy and Bo show, where those guys were running that ship, and rightfully so. They're tremendous players. And then the last 2 years, kind of goofy. Being in the Bay Area, we got to live in the same place both years, which was fun. But like my year in San Fran just kind of came and went. I'm not really proud of how I handled that year, and obviously not really proud of what I did on the field. And then Oakland last year was actually a ton of fun, playing in the Coliseum, the last game there ever. That's a really young team. That was a chance for me to really be a leader to a lot of young guys that are trying to get their careers off the ground, and kind of a new role for me where like all of a sudden I was like the oldest and most tenured guy on the entire team. And they were looking at me like I had it all figured out. And I was like, I'm trying to extend my career here, guys. Like I don't have it all figured out. But anyways, it just so, and coaches too, man, like so many awesome people along the way. But what I said first, Kershaw, just so thankful to have him as a friend and mentor in the game, no doubt.
Ross, I don't know how much you've been able to pay attention to Aggie baseball, but the up and down season, mostly ups recently, but they struggled a little bit to start the year with a lot of injuries and some losses, but now they've turned it around.
Yeah, I'm so excited for them, obviously, that when you lose players to the draft or to the portal, you lose a coach. We obviously Schloss did it the way that he did it. But at the end of the day, he's proved to be an amazing coach, right? He wins baseball games. And, there's some massive voids that we lost in our program. And then you hire a young first-time coach. There's going to be a learning curve. And I understand some of the reactions on Twitter and some of this when you have the talent that we have and they get out of the gate slow like that. I completely get it. And I had some reactions like that as well. Our group chats were going, I was like, oh man, like what's going to happen with this team? And then, eventually you get stuff figured out. You go through that learning curve. The talent gets, kind of takes over. You get kind of healthy. And I mean, we have 3 top 3 series wins in the last couple of weeks. And, I feel like we're going to be like a 2 or a 3 seed in someone's regional. And they're going to be like, hell, like this stinks. That reminds me of my senior year. We had TCU come to our regional in College Station as a 3 seed, and they won the regional, and they were like the best team by far. And you're like, how are these dudes a 3 seed? I feel like the Aggies are going to be like that this year. They're going to go to someone's regional, and everyone's going to be like, oh no, like how in the world is this team in our regional?
Ross, man, we want to celebrate your career. Thank you so much for coming on the show, and let's do it again, man. Congratulations on a wonderful career.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Take care. Ross Stripling here on the Bumpy's Catering Hotline. We'll hit a break. We'll do a final segment here on TexAgs Live, and then we'll look at some text messages and also around the SEC. But right now, we're talking Troubadour Festival. It returns to Aggie Park here on Saturday, May the 17th for the ultimate Texas barbecue and country music experience. You can sample smoked meats from 30 of the best barbecue joints in Texas. An awesome music lineup that includes Shane Smith and the Saints, Randy Rogers and Wade Bowen on their Hold My Beer and Watch This tour, 49 Winchester, Josh Malloy, Hudson Westbrook, and much, much more. Tickets are now on sale at troubadourfestival.com. That is troubadourfestival.com. All right, we're back. TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. Final segment of the program. It is time for Around the SEC, presented by Jaxer. And if you're looking to build your dream home on your lot, let the Jaxer Group help you navigate the entire project from start to finish, making sure that your home perfectly suits your lifestyle, your preference, and your budget to turn your dream home into a reality. Visit them at jaxsir.com. That is jaxer.com. We go to the Angry Elephant News and Social Center. Zachary Reese.
Yes, sir, David. So the USA.com/ESPN softball poll just came out, and our Fighting Texas Aggies are the newly ranked #1 team in college softball. Oklahoma is at #2. We got Tennessee at 3. Florida is ranked #4. Texas is #5. And Arkansas is 6. And then LSU is also the 7th SEC team in the top 10.
7 teams in the top 10.
Yes, sir.
And who's the #1 team?
Texas A&M, David.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Who's the #1 team?
Texas A&M.
But as Tricia has said before, and she will say later, she wants to be #1 when it's all said and done.
Exactly.
We're in May, so we're getting closer.
Yeah, we're getting closer.
But what matters is what happens here in the postseason, right? And they are a fun team without a doubt. So the show's been kind of fun. So I thought, and Nick can help me out here. I thought it was interesting because sometimes when people bring up questions about your school, at least in my position, I want to be defensive. And I don't think I was very defensive with either Josh or Connor because I kind of agree. Like, Marcel has to be able to throw the ball down the field. The defense has got to get after the quarterback. It doesn't feel like in years past where sometimes where these questions, which, by the way, I ended up being wrong, but like I justified some of the mistakes or some of the issues before. For instance, during the Jimbo era, I justified, especially the first couple years that I was here, that the offense isn't pretty, but it's effective. Like, you could run the ball. Like, that's what they were. When they got away from that is where they had some issues.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, both Josh and Connor are really, reputable, and I think their opinions are always pretty well thought out. So it's okay to be like, yeah, okay, I see what they're saying, and not be, I guess, quote unquote defensive. But I mean, you hit the nail on the head. You got to be able to do those things. Marcel's got to show the improvement, that we all expect him to take. I think it's fair to expect that with the O-line returning, right? You're thinking he's probably going to have a little bit more time to throw the ball this year. Hopefully the Le'Veon's back fully healthy and they'll be able to run the ball just as well as they did last year, maybe even better. I like what Connor said, that, what did he say, that A&M has the deepest running back stable in the SEC, at least to start the year. So hopefully that remains true.
Yeah, and then the other thing that came up, and it started with OB, but like, what are some blind spots we're not thinking of, right? Because each year there's a new blind spot or a new part. Like, I really didn't bank on that being an issue for this team. For instance, the defensive line, and you could argue that the defensive line was good up until a point, right? I don't think they were ever elite. There was a stretch where they were holding teams. They couldn't run on A&M. I remember Arkansas thought they could run. They ran well in the first quarter, and after that, they got nothing. So, but at some point, it just wasn't working, right? So and I don't think any of us had on our bingo card that A&M was going to struggle to tackle. But then Connor brought up a point that it wasn't just A&M that had those issues. It was kind of an issue across all of college football. But to me, it was just like so many opportunities to get Lenore Seller, so many opportunities to get this guy. You're just grabbing his jersey and not taking him to the ground. Like, why is that happening? So what are the blind spots?
Yeah, no, and I think those issues became more glaring, I think, just because it happened at the tail end of A&M season, and it started their tailspin, I guess, if you want to call it that, the South Carolina game. But yeah, I don't know. Blind spots for A&M, I don't know. That's an interesting thing to see or talk about, at least. And the best part about it is, there wasn't a lot of movement in the spring portal for A&M. So I feel like we have had a pretty good idea about this team, especially through spring ball. So I think the biggest blind spot, the thing we're going to hear at SEC Media Days, I think, is how you're going to replace Nick Scorton, Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner, all that depth on the defensive line. Like, where's I don't even want to say production, because we know that the sack numbers and all that stuff weren't really there with all those three guys there. But I mean,
here's something for you. if the secondary covers better this year, that opens up the pass rush, right? If the pass rush gets after the quarterback, that helps out the secondary. I think there's going to be some growth in the secondary for A&M from just more experience and some talent that's joining the group, right? Now, there's a lack of experience on the defensive line, but that does not mean that you can't get after the quarterback. We've seen it before. So we feel good about a lot of parts of the offense. There's less questions about the offense than the defense, but the head coach is a defensive-minded head coach who wants to put his hands on the defense. So today, on May the 6th, it gives me a little bit more belief that they'll figure it out because that's his specialty. That's what he's always done. So there's that. All right, that's going to do it for TexAgs Live on a Tuesday. Tomorrow on the show, John Harris, Pat Henry, Trisha Ford, Ryan Broninger, Kendall Rogers. I believe Kendall had a post on TexAgs.com talking about why A&M wasn't in the top 25 just yet. He actually had a very good explanation. He says, maybe after this weekend, things will take care of themselves. We'll talk about that and more. Thanks so much for watching and listening. See you mañana.